The morning light filtered through our bedroom curtains like a promise of good things to come. I lay in bed listening to Lily babble through the baby monitor, her 8-month-old voice already developing that particular pitch that meant she was happy, content, ready to start her day. In the kitchen downstairs, I could hear David making coffee, the familiar sounds of our morning routine, the clink of mugs, the hiss of the espresso machine he'd insisted we needed. This was my life, our life. And in 3 days, I would have to leave it behind for 10 hours a day. Hey, sleepyhead. David appeared in the doorway, 2 cups of coffee in hand, his smile the same one that had made me fall in love with him 6 years ago. Lily's requesting her morning audience. I took the coffee and kissed him, tasting hazelnut and something minty from his toothpaste. You're up early. Big client meeting. He sat on the edge of the bed, watching me with those warm brown eyes. You nervous about Monday? Monday. My first day back at Morrison & Associates after 8 months of maternity leave. 8 months of sleepless nights and first smiles and learning how to be someone's mother. 8 months of falling so deeply in love with my daughter that the thought of leaving her with a stranger made my chest physically ache. Terrified, I admitted. David squeezed my hand. We'll find someone perfect. I promise. We'd bought this house in Austin 2 years ago. Right before I got pregnant. 4 bedrooms. A backyard with an oak tree that David swore would be perfect for a tire swing someday. A neighborhood where people still waved at each other and brought casseroles when someone was sick. The perfect house for the perfect family. I carried Lily downstairs, her chubby fingers tangled in my hair, her weight warm and solid against my hip. She had David's eyes, that same deep brown, but my mouth, my mother's nose, a perfect combination. Da-da-da, she babbled as David took her from me, lifting her high above his head until she shrieked with laughter. That's right, princess. I watched them together, my husband and my daughter, and felt a swell of gratitude so intense it almost hurt. After years of building my career, of wondering if I'd ever find the right person, of 2 miscarriages that had nearly broken me, here we were, a family, everything I'd ever wanted. The interviews started that afternoon. David had taken a half day from work, insisting on being part of the process. She's my daughter too, he said when I raised an eyebrow. I want to make sure we find someone we both trust. The first candidate was a 60-year-old woman named Barbara who spent most of the interview talking about her 17 cats. The second was a 22-year-old college student who admitted she'd never actually held a baby before. The third was a man named Marcus who seemed perfectly qualified but made Lily cry the moment he picked her up. 3 down, 2 to go, David said as I walked Marcus to the door. Don't worry. I wasn't so sure. Every face that walked through our door was a stranger, someone who would be alone with my daughter while I sat in meetings about marketing budgets and client acquisitions. Someone who would feed her and change her and comfort her when she cried. Someone who wasn't me. The fourth candidate was running late. I was about to suggest we reschedule when the doorbell rang. Hi, I'm so sorry. The woman on our doorstep was maybe late 20s, with honey blonde hair pulled back in a neat ponytail, and the kind of genuine smile that made you want to smile back. Traffic on I-35 was absolutely insane. I'm Nicole. Nicole Reed. She shook my hand with a firm, confident grip. Please, come in. I stepped aside, and she entered our home like she belonged there, not presumptuous, just comfortable, at ease. David emerged from the living room with Lily on his hip. You must be our 4 o'clock. That's me. Nicole's eyes went straight to Lily, and her face softened. Oh my goodness. Aren't you just the most precious thing? Lily, who had screamed at Marcus and ignored Barbara completely, reached out her arms toward Nicole. I blinked. My daughter never reached for strangers. Nicole looked at me, asking permission. I nodded, and she took Lily with practiced ease, settling her against her hip like she'd done it 1,000 times. Lily immediately grabbed a strand of Nicole's hair and began examining it with fascination. She likes you, David said, sounding impressed. Babies know. Nicole smiled at Lily. Don't you, sweetheart? Babies always know who they can trust. We sat in the living room as Nicole walked us through her resume. 3 years of nanny experience with 2 families, both of whom had provided glowing references, CPR and first aid certified. Early childhood education degree from Texas State. Clean background check, clean driving record, clean everything. She was, on paper, exactly what we were looking for. Why did you leave your last position? I asked. The Hendersons relocated to Seattle for work. They actually offered to take me with them. But my mother lives here in Austin, and she's been having some health issues. I didn't want to be too far away. Nicole's expression flickered with something sadness, concern, before settling back into pleasant professionalism. Family comes first. It does, David agreed. That's exactly the kind of person we want caring for Lily. I watched my husband watching Nicole. He was nodding, engaged, already sold. Professional, experienced, warm but not overwhelming. So, why did something feel? I studied Nicole as she played with Lily, trying to identify the source of my unease. She was saying all the right things, doing all the right things. Lily adored her. David trusted her. Her references had been impeccable. Maybe that was the problem. She was too perfect. Too exactly what we needed. But that was ridiculous. That was my anxiety talking. The same anxiety that had made me check Lily's breathing 17 times a night for the first 3 months. The same anxiety that had convinced me something would go wrong with the pregnancy, with the delivery, with everything. Sometimes good things just happened. Sometimes you got lucky. What do you think? David asked, after Nicole left. Her phone number programmed into both our phones and a second interview scheduled for Friday. I looked at Lily, who was still staring at the door Nicole had walked through, like she was waiting for her new friend to come back. I think she might be the one. David grinned. See? I told you we'd find someone perfect. Perfect. That word again. I picked up Lily and held her close, breathing in her baby smell, feeling her heartbeat against my chest. We needed someone I could trust with my daughter's life. Someone who would love her when I couldn't be there. Someone who would keep her safe. I had no way of knowing that the woman I was about to hire would be watching me just as closely as I would be watching her. And I had no way of knowing that the real danger wasn't the stranger at the door. It was the man I'd married. Nicole's second interview was even better than the first. She arrived exactly on time Friday afternoon, carrying a small gift bag that turned out to contain a hand-knitted blanket in soft lavender Lily's nursery color, which she must have noticed during her first visit. My grandmother taught me to knit, Nicole explained, watching Lily clutch the blanket against her face. I know it's a little old-fashioned, but I think there's something special about handmade things. They carry love in every stitch. David caught my eye across the living room and raised an eyebrow. Asterisk. See? Asterisk, his expression said. Asterisk. Perfect. Asterisk. We spent 2 hours going over schedules, emergency procedures, dietary requirements. Nicole took detailed notes in a small leather journal, asking thoughtful questions about Lily's sleep patterns, her favorite songs, the specific way she liked to be held when she was fussy. Every baby is different, Nicole said. I want to learn Lily's language, not impose my own. By the end of the interview, I had run out of reasons to say no. When can you start? David asked, already standing to shake her hand. Monday? Nicole looked at me, not David, waiting for my approval. I know that's when you go back to work, Sarah. I want to make sure you feel comfortable before you leave. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt something else. Something I couldn't quite name. A whisper at the back of my mind. Too quiet to understand, but too persistent to ignore. Monday would be perfect, I heard myself say. Nicole started at 7 a.m., an hour before I needed to leave for the office. She was wearing a soft blue cardigan that matched her eyes, her hair in the same neat ponytail. She smelled like vanilla and something floral jasmine. Maybe. the kind of scent that made you think of summer gardens and childhood memories. I brought some activities. She held up a canvas bag filled with books and sensory toys. Age appropriate, of course. I checked the developmental milestones for 8 months and planned accordingly. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to. Nicole smiled, taking Lily from my arms with practiced ease. Go conquer the world, Sarah. We'll be fine here. I kissed Lily's forehead, lingering longer than necessary. She barely noticed, already fascinated by the colorful rings Nicole was showing her. I'll check in at lunch, I said. Take your time. First days back are always overwhelming. Nicole bounced Lily gently on her hip. We're going to have so much fun, aren't we, sweet girl? Lily gurgled happily. I grabbed my bag and headed for the door, fighting the urge to turn around. This was normal. Millions of mothers left their children with caregivers every day. Lily was safe. Nicole was qualified. Everything was fine. So why did my hands shake the entire drive to work? The first week passed without incident. Every morning, Nicole arrived early. Every evening, I came home to a clean house, a happy baby, and detailed notes about Lily's day. How much she ate, how long she slept, what new sounds she made. Nicole photographed everything and sent updates throughout the day, anticipating my anxiety before I could even express it. She's amazing, David said Thursday night, scrolling through the photos on my phone. He was right. In every picture, Lily was smiling, laughing, reaching for the camera with chubby hands. She had bonded with Nicole faster than I'd ever seen her bond with anyone except me. That should have made me happy. Instead, I found myself watching Nicole more closely. The way she moved through our house like she'd lived there for years. The way she seemed to know where everything was before I told her. The way David talked to her, friendly, warm, maybe a little too comfortable for someone we'd known less than 2 weeks. You're being paranoid, I told myself, lying in bed that night while David showered. She's good at her job. That's all. But the whisper at the back of my mind had grown louder. Asterisk. Something isn't right. Asterisk. I decided to trust my instincts. Saturday morning, while David took Lily to his mother's for their weekly visit, I drove to Target and bought a Nanny cam. It looked like an ordinary teddy bear, cream-colored fur, black button eyes, a red bow around its neck. The camera was hidden in the bow, nearly invisible unless you knew what to look for. For monitoring purposes, the box said, keep your loved ones safe. I placed the bear on the bookshelf in the living room, angled toward the sofa and the kitchen doorway, connected it to an app on my phone, watched the test footage until I was satisfied with the image quality. I didn't tell David. I wasn't sure why. We shared everything, finances, passwords, the location of our phones. But something made me keep this secret. Some instinct I couldn't explain. Maybe I was just being a paranoid first-time mother. Maybe I would watch the footage and see exactly what I expected. Nicole being wonderful, Lily being happy, my fears being completely unfounded. But if I was right, if something was wrong, I wanted to know before anyone else did. The footage from Monday showed nothing unusual. Nicole reading to Lily. Nicole singing nursery rhymes. Nicole dancing around the living room with my daughter in her arms while Lily laughed and laughed. Tuesday was the same. And Wednesday, and Thursday. By Friday, I had almost convinced myself to remove the camera. I was being ridiculous, invasive, the kind of helicopter parent I had always sworn I wouldn't become. Then Friday night happened. David came home late, some work emergency, he said, kissing me on the cheek before heading upstairs to shower. I sat on the couch with Lily, scrolling absently through the day's footage. Nicole feeding Lily lunch. Nicole putting Lily down for her nap. Nicole folding laundry while Lily played on her activity mat. And then, at 6:47 p.m., David, walking through the front door. I frowned. He'd told me he was in meetings until 8. But here he was, on camera, walking into our living room while I was still stuck at the office. Nicole looked up from the couch, where she was reading a book. She didn't look surprised to see him. Is she asleep? David asked, his voice tinny through the phone's speaker. Just went down. Nicole set her book aside. We need to talk. David sat next to her closer than necessary, I thought. But not touching. Not romantic. Something else. I know, he said. But we have to be careful. Sarah's suspicious. My blood turned to ice. I leaned closer to the phone, turning the volume up as high as it would go. She won't find out, Nicole said. The plan is perfect. By the time she realizes anything is wrong, it'll be too late. It has to look like an accident. No one can suspect. It will. Nicole's voice was calm, cold, nothing like the warm woman who sang nursery rhymes to my daughter. Trust me. I've thought of everything. David nodded slowly. Saturday, then. While Lily's at my mother's. Saturday, Nicole agreed. They sat in silence for a moment. Then David stood, straightening his tie. I should get ready. She'll be home soon. He walked toward the stairs, passing out of the camera's frame. Nicole remained on the couch, staring at nothing, her expression unreadable. I sat frozen. The phone trembling in my hands. Asterisk. The plan is perfect. It has to look like an accident. Saturday. Asterisk. They weren't having an affair. They were planning something far worse. They were planning to kill me. I don't remember putting Lily to bed that night. I must have done it, fed her, bathed her, sung her the lullaby she loved, but the memories blur together like watercolors in rain. All I could see was the footage playing on an endless loop in my mind. David on the couch. Nicole's cold voice. Asterisk. The plan is perfect. It has to look like an accident. Asterisk. Saturday. They were going to kill me on Saturday. That gave me less than 24 hours. I locked myself in the bathroom after Lily was asleep, sitting on the cold tile floor with my phone pressed against my ear. The footage played again, and again, and again. I turned the volume up until their voices filled the small space, bouncing off the walls like accusations. Asterisk. Sarah's suspicious. Asterisk. Asterisk. She won't find out. Asterisk. Asterisk. It has to look like an accident. Asterisk. I listened for anything I might have missed. A hint that I was misunderstanding. A context that would make this something other than what it obviously was. There was nothing. My husband, the man I had loved for 6 years, the man I had built a life with, the man who had held my hand through 2 miscarriages and cried with me when we finally heard Lily's heartbeat, was planning to murder me. And the woman I had trusted with my daughter was helping him. I didn't sleep that night. David came to bed around 11, sliding under the covers and reaching for me the way he always did. His hand found my hip, warm and familiar. Long day? He murmured. I forced myself not to flinch. Yeah, exhausted. Get some rest. He kissed my shoulder. Tomorrow's Saturday. We can sleep in while Mom has Lily. While Mom has Lily. The same words he'd used with Nicole. The same timeline. I lay perfectly still, counting his breaths until they deepened into sleep. Then I slipped out of bed and went downstairs, my phone clutched in my hand like a weapon. I needed more. The footage I had was damning, but it was also vague. A good lawyer could argue they were talking about anything. A surprise party. A business deal. Some innocent plan that I'd misinterpreted in my paranoid new mother state. If I was going to survive this, I needed proof that couldn't be explained away. I spent the night building my case. First, I downloaded the footage to 3 separate locations. My phone, my laptop, and a cloud drive with a password only I knew. Then, I went through every piece of evidence I could find. David's laptop was in his office, password protected. But I knew the password, our anniversary date, 0614, because we shared everything. Or so I'd thought. His email was the first shock. Nicole Reed had been in contact with my husband for 6 months. 6 months long before we'd ever posted the nanny job listing. Long before I'd interviewed her and marveled at how perfect she was. The emails were careful, Coded. But clear enough if you knew what to look for. Asterisk. The position is still available. Timeline as discussed. Asterisk. David. 4 months ago. Asterisk. I'm ready when you are. Everything is in place. Asterisk. Nicole. 3 months ago. Asterisk. She's due back at work in March. That's our window. Asterisk. David. 2 months ago. They had planned this. They had planned this from the beginning. I felt sick. The second shock was his bank account. David was a financial advisor. He managed other people's money for a living, and he was good at it, or so I'd always believed. But the account I was looking at told a different story. Withdrawals to online gambling sites. Thousands of dollars, then tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands. A pattern of deposits and losses that stretched back 3 years, carefully hidden in accounts I'd never known existed. The current balance. -$847,000. My husband was nearly $1 million in debt. And then I found the insurance policy. He had taken it out 8 months ago, right after I'd told him I was pregnant. A life insurance policy for Sarah Mitchell, with a death benefit of $2 million. The beneficiary was David Mitchell. There was a clause I almost missed, buried in the fine print. Asterisk. Accidental death benefit. Double payout. Asterisk. $4 million. That's what my life was worth to him. $4 million to pay off his gambling debts, with plenty left over to start fresh. Maybe with Nicole. Maybe with someone else. It didn't matter. What mattered was that I finally understood. David didn't love me. Maybe he never had. I was an investment, a life insurance policy with legs, walking and talking and raising his daughter until he was ready to cash out. And Nicole? I still didn't understand her role in all this. She wasn't just a hired killer. The emails showed something more personal, more complicated. But that mystery would have to wait. Right now, I needed to survive. By dawn, I had a folder on my cloud drive containing everything. The footage, the emails, the financial records, the insurance policy. I named it in case of emergency and set it to automatically share with Rachel Chen if I didn't log in for 48 hours. Rachel, my best friend since college, a defense attorney who had seen enough crime to recognize it when it walked through her door. I needed to call her. I needed to tell someone. I needed help. But first, I needed to get through one more day without letting David know that everything had changed. I heard him stirring upstairs, the familiar creak of our bedroom floor. In a few minutes, he would come down expecting coffee, and a normal Saturday morning. He would kiss me and smile and play with Lily and pretend to be the perfect husband he had never been, and I would let him, because the alternative was tipping him off. Letting him know that his perfect plan had a fatal flaw. A teddy bear with a camera in its bow, sitting on a bookshelf in the living room, watching everything. I started the coffee maker and arranged my face into something resembling calm. Asterisk. One more day, asterisk. I told myself. Asterisk. Just survive one more day. Asterisk. The stairs creaked. David appeared in the kitchen doorway, rumpled and smiling. Morning. Beautiful. He crossed the room and wrapped his arms around me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder. Sleep, okay? I leaned back into his embrace, feeling his heart beat against my spine. The heart of a man who was planning to push me down the stairs tonight. I slept fine, I said. Just fine. Saturday morning unfolded like any other. David made pancakes while I fed Lily her breakfast, mashing bananas into the consistency she liked. He hummed along to the radio, flipping pancakes with theatrical flair, playing the role of devoted husband and father with a performance so convincing I almost doubted what I'd seen. Almost. Mom's expecting us at 10, David said, sliding a plate in front of me. I figured we'd drop Lily off, then maybe grab lunch? Just the two of us. We haven't had a date in forever. A date. He wanted to take me on a date before killing me. That sounds nice, I heard myself say. My voice came out steady, normal. Nothing like the screaming inside my head. You okay? David studied my face. You seem tired. Didn't sleep well. New project at work, keeping me up. He nodded sympathetically, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. You work too hard. Asterisk. Let me take care of you. Asterisk. The words that used to make me feel loved now sounded like a threat. I squeezed his hand back and smiled. Nicole arrived at 9:30. She wasn't supposed to work Saturdays, but David had asked her to come help get Lily ready while we prepared for the day. Another detail that made perfect sense on the surface and chilled me to the bone underneath. Good morning. Nicole's voice was bright, cheerful, exactly the same as always. She scooped Lily from her high chair and nuzzled her cheek. There's my favorite girl. Did you have a good breakfast? I watched them together, my daughter in the arms of a woman who was helping plan my murder, and felt something crack inside my chest. Sarah? Nicole was looking at me, her head tilted with concern. You okay? You look pale. Fine. I forced a smile. Just tired. You should take it easy today. David mentioned you've been stressed. She bounced Lily on her hip, the picture of innocent helpfulness. I can stay late if you need extra time to yourselves. Asterisk. Extra time. Asterisk. Time to kill me and clean up the evidence. That's so thoughtful, I said. Thank you, Nicole. Our eyes met, and for just a moment, a fraction of a second, I saw something flicker in her gaze. Something cold and calculating beneath the warm exterior. Then it was gone, replaced by her usual, pleasant smile. Anything for this family, she said. I excused myself to the bathroom and called Rachel. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold the phone. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Sarah? Rachel's voice was groggy. Saturday morning. Probably still in bed. What's wrong? I need help. The words tumbled out in a rush. David is planning to kill me. Him and the nanny. They're going to make it look like an accident. Tonight, Rachel. I have proof footage, emails, financial records, but I don't know what to do. The police won't believe me. They'll think I'm crazy, and I only have a few hours. Slow down. Rachel's voice sharpened, all traces of sleep gone. Start from the beginning. Tell me everything, I told her. The nanny cam, the conversation, the emails going back 6 months, the $847,000 in gambling debt, the $4 million insurance policy. When I finished, there was silence on the other end. Jesus Christ, Rachel breathed. What do I do? Do I run? Do I go to the police? Do I confront him? No, absolutely not. Rachel's lawyer voice kicked in, calm, methodical, strategic. Don't confront him. Don't run. Don't do anything that tips him off. If he knows you know, he might accelerate the timeline or change the plan entirely. Right now, your advantage is that he thinks you're clueless. But the police won't act fast enough on a he said, she said domestic situation. Trust me, I've seen it 100 times. By the time they investigate, you could be dead. Rachel paused. But if we can catch him in the act, you want me to let him try to kill me? I want you to control the situation. You know when, you know how, you know where. That gives us time to set up safeguards. Hidden cameras in every room. A panic button connected to 911. Me waiting outside with the police on speed dial. I closed my eyes, trying to breathe. You're asking me to use myself as bait. I'm asking you to survive. And to get evidence so bulletproof that David spends the rest of his life in prison. Rachel's voice softened. I know it's terrifying, but you're smarter than him, Sarah. You've already proven that. You found out his plan before he could execute it. Now we use that against him. Through the bathroom door, I could hear Lily laughing at something Nicole was doing. Okay, I said. Tell me what to do. The plan came together in whispered phone calls throughout the morning. Rachel would contact a private security firm she'd worked with before. Discreet, fast, expensive. They would install additional cameras, audio recorders, and a silent alarm connected directly to Rachel's phone. If I pressed the button, she would call 911 and send police to my location immediately. Meanwhile, I had to keep playing along. David drove us to his mother's house at 10, Lily babbling happily in her car seat. Karen Mitchell greeted us at the door. With her usual forced smile, she had never quite approved of me, though she doted on Lily like the granddaughter she'd always wanted. "She's getting so big," Karen cooed, taking Lily from David's arms. "Come to Grandma, sweetheart. We're going to have the best day. Thanks for watching her, Mom." David kissed Karen's cheek. "We'll pick her up around 7. Asterisk. 7. Asterisk. By 7, I was supposed to be dead. I hugged Lily tighter than usual, breathing in her baby smell, memorizing the weight of her in my arms. "Mommy loves you," I whispered against her hair. "Mommy loves you so much. Sarah?" David was watching me from the doorway. "You ready?" I handed Lily to Karen, every instinct screaming at me to grab my daughter and run. Instead, I smiled at my husband. "Ready," I said. We had lunch at a restaurant downtown, the same place David had proposed 4 years ago. He ordered champagne and held my hand across the table and told me how grateful he was for our life together. "I know things have been stressful," he said, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. "The baby, you going back to work, all the adjustments. But I want you to know you're everything to me, Sarah. You and Lily. I would do anything for this family. Asterisk. Anything. Except not murder me. For insurance money. Asterisk. I love you too," I said. The words tasted like ash in my mouth. We drove home as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Beautiful. Peaceful. The kind of evening that should have ended with wine on the back porch and lazy conversation about nothing important. Instead, it would end with my husband trying to push me down the stairs. Nicole's car was in the driveway when we pulled up. "She's still here?" I asked, keeping my voice casual. I asked her to prep some things for tomorrow. David's smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "Come on, let's go inside." The front door opened. Nicole stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the light. "Welcome home," she said, and I walked into my own house knowing that in a few hours, 2 people I had trusted would try to end my life. But they didn't know what I knew, and they didn't know what was waiting for them. The house was quiet when we walked in. Too quiet. Nicole had turned off the lights in the living room, leaving only a single lamp glowing near the stairs. Soft music played from somewhere, the kind of ambient jazz David liked, the kind that was supposed to be romantic. "I opened a bottle of wine," Nicole said, appearing from the kitchen with 2 glasses. "Thought you might want to unwind after your date." She handed 1 glass to David, 1 to me. The wine was a deep burgundy, almost black in the dim light. I knew with absolute certainty that my glass was drugged. "Thank you, Nicole." I took the glass, letting the wine swirl against the sides. "That's so thoughtful. I should probably head out." Nicole grabbed her purse from the counter, movements casual, rehearsed. "Give you 2 some privacy." Actually, David's voice stopped her at the door. "Could you stay a few more minutes? I wanted to show Sarah something upstairs, and I might need help with the thing." The thing. Whatever the thing was, it involved both of them. Nicole's smile flickered. I had exactly 7 minutes. That's how long Rachel had said it would take for the security team to finish installing the additional cameras. They had arrived while we were at lunch, posing as cable technicians, and had wired the house with enough surveillance equipment to catch every angle, every word, every movement. 7 minutes until everything was recording. "I'm going to freshen up," I said, setting my wine glass on the coffee table untouched. "Be right back." I climbed the stairs slowly, feeling their eyes on my back. At the top, I turned left toward the master bathroom, instead of right toward the bedroom, locked the door, pulled out my phone. Rachel answered on the first ring. "Status? 4 minutes," she said. "The team is almost done. The panic button is in your jacket pocket left side. Feels like a lipstick. Press and hold for 3 seconds. I found it immediately small, cylindrical, exactly where she'd said it would be. My lifeline. Audio and video are live in the living room, kitchen, and master bedroom. Rachel continued. I'm parked 2 blocks away with Detective Santos. She's off duty. Doing this as a favor. But she's ready to call in backup. The moment we have enough evidence. Detective Santos. Rachel hadn't mentioned involving the police. You found someone who believed me? Maya Santos investigated a similar case 3 years ago. Husband planning to kill wife for insurance money. She couldn't prove it in time, and the woman died. Rachel's voice hardened. She's been looking for a case like this ever since. A chance to get it right, 3 years ago. Something about that timing nagged at me, but I didn't have time to think about it. What do I do now? Go back downstairs. Let them make their move. The moment David tries anything at all, you press that button, and we come in. And if he doesn't? If he changes his mind? Then we have footage of him conspiring with Nicole, plus all the financial evidence. Enough to arrest. Probably not enough to convict. Rachel paused. But Sarah? He's not going to change his mind. He's in too deep. The only way out of that debt is through you. I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. The woman staring back looked calm, composed. Nothing like the terrified mess screaming inside my head. Asterisk. You can do this. Asterisk. I told myself. Asterisk. For Lily. For yourself. You can do this. Asterisk. I'm ready, I said. I walked back downstairs with my heart pounding so loud I was sure they could hear it. David and Nicole were sitting on the couch, their heads close together, speaking in low voices. They sprang apart when they heard my footsteps too fast, too guilty. Everything okay? David asked. Perfect. I picked up my wine glass, raised it to my lips, and pretended to take a long sip. The liquid touched my mouth but didn't go past my lips. An old trick from college parties, useful now in ways I never could have imagined. Good wine, I said, setting the glass back down. Something flickered in Nicole's eyes, surprise, suspicion. But she smiled her usual warm smile. I'm glad you like it. David stood, stretching with theatrical casualness. Hey, babe, can you come upstairs for a second? I want to show you something in the bedroom. The bedroom. At the top of the stairs. This was it. Sure. My voice came out steady, normal. A surprise. He held out his hand. Come on. I took his hand, the hand I had held on our wedding day. The hand that had cradled our newborn daughter. The hand that was planning to push me to my death. We walked toward the stairs together. Nicole followed. The staircase in our house was steep, 14 steps with a sharp turn at the landing. I had always worried about it, especially after Lily started crawling. We'd installed a baby gate at the top. But the stairs themselves were hardwood, unforgiving. A fall from the top could easily be fatal. I climbed slowly, David behind me, Nicole behind him. With each step, my hand drifted closer to my left pocket, to the panic button, to the 3 seconds that would bring Rachel and Detective Santos crashing through our front door. 12 steps, 11, 10. You know, David said casually, I've been thinking about how hard you've been working lately. All that stress. It's not good for you. I'm fine, I said. You're not fine. You're exhausted. Anyone can see it. His voice was soft, concerned, the voice of a loving husband. That's why I wanted to do something special tonight, to help you relax. 8 steps. 7. 6. That's sweet, I managed. I just want to take care of you, Sarah. That's all I've ever wanted. 5 steps. 4. 3. I could feel him close behind me now. Too close. His breath warm on my neck. 2 steps. 1. I reached the top of the stairs and turned around. David stood on the step below me, his hand raised not to push. Not yet, but positioned, ready. Behind him, Nicole watched with cold, empty eyes. And in that moment, I made a decision. I wasn't going to wait for them to make their move. I was going to make mine first. I know, I said quietly. David's smile faltered. Know what? Everything. I pulled out my phone and held it up, showing him the footage, his conversation with Nicole, playing on an endless loop. I know about the plan. I know about the insurance. I know about the $800,000 you owe. The color drained from his face. Sarah. And I know, I continued, my voice steady as stone, that you've been planning to kill me. For 3 heartbeats. Nobody moved. David stood frozen on the stairs, his face cycling through emotions, shock, denial, calculation, before settling on something I'd never seen before. Sarah, he said carefully, I don't know what you think you heard, but don't. I held up the phone higher, the footage still playing. His own voice echoed back at him. Asterisk. It has to look like an accident. Asterisk. Don't lie to me. Not anymore. Nicole shifted behind David, her hand moving toward her purse, toward something inside it. Don't move, Nicole. My voice came out sharper than I intended. I know you're part of this. I know you've been planning this with him for 6 months. Nicole's mask finally cracked. The warm, friendly Nanny disappeared, replaced by someone harder, someone dangerous. You weren't supposed to find out, she said flatly. You were supposed to drink the wine and fall asleep. It would have been painless. Painless? I laughed, a harsh, broken sound. You were going to murder me. And you think that makes it okay because it would have been painless? Shut up. David's voice cut through the air. He was moving now, climbing the last step to stand level with me. Both of you, shut up. We can fix this. Fix this? I stepped backward, toward the bedroom. There's nothing to fix, David. I have everything. The footage, the emails, your gambling records, the insurance policy, it's already backed up to the cloud. It's already been sent to my lawyer. Something flickered in David's eyes. Fear. Real fear. You're bluffing. Rachel Chen. You remember her, my maid of honor? She's a defense attorney now. She's seen everything. And right now, she's parked 2 blocks away, with a detective who's very interested in talking to you. David's jaw tightened. You're lying. Call the police and find out. The moment stretched like a rubber band about to snap. I watched David's face, watched him calculating his options. He could let me go, face arrest, spend decades in prison. Or he could. He lunged. His hands grabbed my shoulders, shoving me backward with a force that knocked the breath from my lungs. I stumbled, my feet tangling, my back hitting the hallway wall. David, stop. Nicole's voice, panicked now. This isn't the plan. The plan is ruined. David's face was inches from mine, twisted with rage. She ruined everything. My hand found my pocket, found the panic button, pressed. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3. David's hands closed around my throat. The world narrowed to his fingers on my windpipe, the pressure building, the desperate need for air that wouldn't come. You couldn't just drink the wine, he snarled. You couldn't just trust me. You had to snoop, had to spy, had to ruin everything I worked for. Black spots danced in my vision. Asterisk, Lily, asterisk, I thought. Asterisk, I can't die. I have to see Lily again. Asterisk. I drove my knee upward as hard as I could. David doubled over with a grunt, his grip loosening just enough for me to twist free. I gasped for air, my throat burning, my vision swimming. Nicole! David choked out. Help me! But Nicole wasn't moving. She stood at the top of the stairs, watching us with an expression I couldn't read. Nicole! No. Her voice was quiet, calm. I didn't sign up for this. I signed up for an accident, not a murder, in front of witnesses. There are no witnesses. There are cameras. Nicole pointed to the corner of the ceiling to the new smoke detector that wasn't really a smoke detector. She said she sent everything to her lawyer. She said there's a detective outside. It's over, David. David's face contorted with fury. You coward! After everything I promised you, you promised me justice. Nicole's voice cracked. You promised me you'd pay for what you did to Emma. But this isn't justice. This is just another murder. The name hit me like a physical blow. Emma. Who's Emma? I croaked, my hand still pressed against my bruised throat. Nicole turned to look at me, and for the first time, I saw the real person beneath the mask. Not a cold-blooded killer, not a gold digger, just a woman carrying a weight too heavy to bear. My sister, Nicole said. Emma Reed. She died 3 years ago. Nicole, don't. David started. She was pregnant. Nicole kept going, her eyes never leaving mine. David's baby. He told her to get rid of it. She refused. Said she was going to keep it, raise it. Tell everyone who the father was. The pieces clicked into place. The case Detective Santos had mentioned. The woman who died before she could prove anything. 2 weeks later, Emma's car went off a cliff on Highway 71. Brake failure. The police ruled it an accident. It was an accident, David said desperately. I had nothing to do with. Akem, you cut her brake lines. Nicole's voice was ice. I found the receipt. Auto parts store, 3 days before she died. You bought the exact tools needed to sabotage her car. I stared at my husband, this man I had loved, had married, had built a life with, and saw him clearly for the first time. You killed her, I whispered. David's silence was all the confirmation I needed. I was supposed to get justice, Nicole continued. I was supposed to help him kill you, collect the insurance money, and then turn him in, give the police everything they needed to convict him for Emma's murder. But her voice broke. I couldn't do it. I watched you with Lily, and I couldn't. Sirens. Distant, but growing closer. David's head snapped toward the window. No. He turned back to me, desperation wild in his eyes. No, you can't do this. I'll lose everything. You already lost everything, I said. The sirens were louder now. Red and blue lights flashed through the windows. David looked at me, at Nicole, at the door, and then he ran. He shoved past Nicole, thundering down the stairs, heading for the back door. I heard it slam open, heard his footsteps on the deck, heard shouting. Men's voices. Freeze! On the ground! Now! I sank to the floor, my back against the wall, my whole body shaking. Nicole stood motionless at the top of the stairs, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I didn't answer. I couldn't. The front door burst open, and suddenly the house was full of police, their flashlights cutting through the dim living room, their voices overlapping in a chaos of commands. Sarah! Rachel appeared at the top of the stairs, her face pale with terror. Sarah, are you okay? I looked up at my best friend. I'm alive, I said, and then I started to cry. The police station smelled like burnt coffee and industrial cleaner. I sat in an interview room with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders, though I couldn't stop shivering. Rachel sat beside me, her hand on my arm, a steady anchor in a world that had come completely undone. Detective Maya Santos sat across the table, a recorder between us. She was in her early 40s, with sharp, dark eyes and silver streaks in her black hair, the kind of woman who had seen too much and stopped being surprised by any of it. Mrs. Mitchell, she began, I know you've been through a trauma tonight, but the more you can tell us now, the stronger our case will be. Sarah, I corrected automatically. I don't want to be Mrs. Mitchell anymore. Santos nodded, something like understanding in her eyes. Sarah, then, can you walk me through what happened tonight? From the beginning, I told her everything. The nanny cam, the footage, the emails and financial records, the The wine I hadn't drunk. The stares. David's hands around my throat. Santos listened without interrupting, taking occasional notes on a legal pad. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "You said Nicole mentioned her sister," Santos said finally. "Emma Reed." "Yes." I pulled the blanket tighter. "She said David killed her. 3 years ago. Made it look like a car accident." Santos's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I know. I was the detective on that case." Rachel leaned forward. "You investigated Emma Reed's death?" "I did." Santos flipped open a file she'd brought with her, old, worn at the edges, clearly handled many times. Emma Reed, 25 years old, died October 14th, 2022, when her car went off Highway 71. Brake failure. She slid a photograph across the table. A young woman with honey blonde hair and bright blue eyes. Nicole's eyes. I realized with a jolt. Emma was smiling at the camera. One hand resting on her stomach. She was 4 months pregnant when she died. Santos continued. The father was listed as unknown on her medical records, but her sister Nicole told me Emma had been seeing someone. A married man. Someone she'd met at a financial planning seminar. My stomach turned. I suspected, but I couldn't prove it. Emma never told Nicole his name, just that he was older, successful, promised he was going to leave his wife. Santos's voice was flat, controlled, but I could hear the anger underneath. When I tried to investigate further, I hit a wall. Witnesses who suddenly couldn't remember anything. Evidence that went missing. My captain told me to close the case, ruled it an accident. "Why?" Rachel asked. "Because David Mitchell's father was a district court judge." Santos met my eyes. Judge Richard Mitchell. He died 2 years ago, but back then, he still had enough pull to make problems disappear, including investigations into his son, David's father. I'd known he came from a prominent family, old Austin money, political connections, but I'd never imagined this. Never imagined that those connections had been used to cover up a murder. "I've been waiting 3 years for this," Santos said quietly. 3 years for someone to give me the evidence I needed to reopen Emma Reed's case. And tonight, you did. The door opened, and a uniformed officer leaned in. "Detective?" "Nicole Reed is ready to talk." Santos stood, gathering her files. "I need to interview her separately. But before I go," she paused at the door, "you should know that Nicole has agreed to cooperate fully. She's been carrying evidence against David for 3 years. The auto parts receipt, text messages, photographs of David's car, parked near Emma's apartment the night before she died. Why didn't she come forward before?" I asked. She tried. Twice. Both times, the complaints disappeared before they reached anyone who could act on them. Santos's expression was grim. David's father made sure of that. After the second time, Nicole realized she needed more than evidence. She needed someone else, another victim, to corroborate her story. The realization hit me like ice water. "She let herself be hired as our nanny," I said slowly. "She wasn't just helping David. She was building a case against him. She was using you as bait," Santos confirmed. "And when David revealed his plan to kill you for the insurance money, she finally had what she needed. Another attempted murder. A pattern, but she was going to let me die." My voice cracked. She was going to help him kill me. She says she was never going to let it happen. She planned to call in an anonymous tip, something to stop the murder without revealing her involvement. Santos shook her head. "Whether that's true or not, I don't know. What I do know is that tonight, when it mattered, she chose to help you instead of him." She left, and the door clicked shut behind her. Rachel and I sat in silence for a long time. My mind kept spinning, trying to process everything I'd learned. David had killed before. His father had covered it up. Nicole had spent 3 years planning revenge, and I had been a pawn in her game, but I was alive. Lily still had a mother, and David was finally going to face justice. I want to see her, I said suddenly. Rachel frowned. See who? Nicole. I stood up, the blanket falling from my shoulders. I need to understand. I need to hear it from her. Sarah, that's not a good idea. She conspired to. She also stopped him. She could have helped David kill me tonight, and she didn't. I met Rachel's eyes. I'm not saying I forgive her, but I need to know why. I need to know who Emma was. I need to know everything. Rachel studied me for a long moment, then sighed. I'll see what I can arrange. 20 minutes later, I was sitting across from Nicole Reed. She looked different, without the mask, smaller, younger, exhausted. Her wrists were cuffed to the table, but she didn't seem to notice. Her eyes were red from crying, fixed on some middle distance. Thank you for seeing me, she said quietly. No, I didn't. I sat down across from her. But I need to understand something. You spent months in my home. You held my daughter. You made her laugh. You earned her trust. And the whole time you were planning to help my husband kill me. Nicole flinched but didn't look away. How do you live with that? I don't know. Her voice was barely a whisper. I thought I could do it. I thought. Emma's face. Every night when I closed my eyes. The sound of my mother crying at the funeral. The way the police just gave up. She swallowed hard. I wanted David to pay. I wanted him to lose everything. The way we lost everything. And I thought you were just collateral. Collateral. But then I met Lily. Nicole's composure cracked, tears spilling down her cheeks. She's so small, so perfect. And I watched you with her, the way you held her, the way you sang to her, the way your whole face lit up when she laughed. And I realized. She looked at me then. Really, looked at me. And I saw something I hadn't expected. Genuine remorse. I'm sorry, Nicole said. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know you'll probably hate me forever. And I deserve that. But I need you to know I would have stopped it. I would have found a way. Because your daughter deserves a mother who comes home. I thought about Lily, sleeping at Karen's house, innocent of everything. I thought about Emma, who never got to hold her baby. I thought about all the ways this story could have ended differently. Tell me about Emma, I said finally. Tell me who she was. Nicole's face crumpled. And then, she began to talk. Emma was the brave one, Nicole began, her voice raw. That's what everyone always said. She was 3 years older, but she never treated me like a little kid. She was my best friend. She stared at her cuffed hands, lost in memory. Our parents divorced when I was 8. Dad disappeared, just gone. No forwarding address. Mom worked 2 jobs to keep us fed. Emma practically raised me. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. She used to make up these elaborate stories at bedtime, adventures where we were princesses who saved ourselves. She said she never wanted me to think I needed someone else to rescue me. I thought of Lily. So small and trusting. The stories I would tell her someday. When did she meet David? I asked. 4 years ago. She was working as a receptionist at a law firm downtown trying to save money for nursing school. David came in for a meeting with one of the partners. Nicole's jaw tightened. He was charming, attentive, showed up with flowers, took her to expensive restaurants, told her he was separated from his wife, that the divorce was almost final. Was he? Separated? Nicole laughed bitterly. He wasn't even married yet. You two didn't meet until a year later. The timeline clicked into place. David had been pursuing Emma while he was single, then married me, while still stringing her along. She believed him, Nicole continued. She was so smart about everything else. But when it came to David, she wanted so badly to believe someone could love her like that. After Dad left, she always felt like she wasn't enough. David knew exactly how to exploit that. When she got pregnant, everything changed. Nicole's voice dropped, heavy with grief. She was terrified at first. Single mom, no degree, barely making rent. But then she started to get excited. She bought baby clothes, started a savings account, picked out names. Nicole's eyes glistened. She wanted to name the baby Lily, actually. If it was a girl, my breath caught. Lily, the same name I had chosen for my daughter. She told David about the pregnancy, thinking he'd be happy. That maybe it would finally make him leave his wife or whatever he'd told her about his situation. Nicole shook her head. Instead, he gave her money, told her to take care of it. When she refused, he said he'd deny everything. Said no one would believe a receptionist over a Mitchell. But she wouldn't back down. No. Emma never backed down from anything. Pride and sorrow mixed in Nicole's voice. She said she didn't need him, said she'd raise the baby alone, and if he didn't want to be part of their lives, that was his loss. She was going to keep the child and love it enough for two parents. And then, Nicole was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was barely audible. 2 weeks later, her car went off Highway 71. Brake failure, they said. Mechanical defect. Just a tragic accident. I knew it wasn't an accident. Nicole's hands clenched into fists on the table. Emma was careful. Obsessively careful. Especially after she got pregnant. She had her car serviced 2 weeks before she died. Everything was fine. She looked at me with burning eyes. I told the police. I told them about David. About the threats. About how scared she'd been in those last days. They said they'd look into it, but they didn't. Detective Santos tried. She really tried. But every lead went nowhere. Witnesses who'd seen David near Emma's apartment suddenly couldn't remember anything. The service records from Emma's mechanic disappeared. And then Santos's captain told her to close the case. Nicole's voice shook with rage. I found out later that David's father made some calls. Judge Richard Mitchell, protecting his precious son. I thought of all the times David had mentioned his father with casual reverence. The prestigious career, the family legacy, the connections that opened doors, the connections that closed investigations. I tried twice to file complaints after that, Nicole continued. Both times, the paperwork vanished. The second time, I got a visit from a man who said he represented the Mitchell family's interests. He told me that if I kept making accusations, I'd regret it. That I should focus on grieving my sister and let the past stay buried. So you stopped. I waited. Nicole's eyes met mine. I waited until the judge died. Then I waited another year, making sure no one else was protecting David. And then I reached out to him. I told him I was Emma's sister. That I knew what he'd done. I leaned forward, heart pounding. What did he say? He panicked at first. Thought I was going to blackmail him. But I played it differently. I told him I was angry at Emma, not him. That she'd stolen my boyfriend years ago. That I'd always resented her. That I was glad she was gone. Nicole's voice was hollow. I told him I had evidence that could hurt him. But I didn't want money. I wanted something else. What? Revenge on Emma's memory. I told him I wanted to help him move on, find happiness, build a life she'd tried to destroy. He bought it. He was so arrogant, so convinced of his own charm, that he actually believed Emma's own sister wanted to help him. The manipulation was breathtaking. Nicole had spent months, years becoming exactly what David needed. A confidant, an ally, a co-conspirator. When he told me about the debt, about the insurance policy, about his plan to kill you, let him commit another crime, let him reveal his true nature, and then bring it all crashing down. But you were going to let me die, I said quietly. Nicole's face crumpled. I told myself I'd stop it, that I'd find a way to save you without revealing my involvement. But the truth is, I don't know. I don't know if I would have. She looked at me with devastated eyes. I wanted David to pay so badly that I almost became a murderer myself. I almost orphaned your daughter. For revenge. Silence hung between us. Emma would have hated me for this, Nicole whispered. She always said the brave thing wasn't fighting. It was choosing not to become the monster you were fighting against. She covered her face with her hands. I failed her. I failed you. I failed everyone. I sat with her words, feeling their weight settle into my bones. This woman had conspired to kill me, had spent months in my home, earning my trust, all while planning my death. She had held my daughter with hands that were supposed to help end my life. And yet, she had also lost her sister, lost her niece or nephew before they'd ever drawn breath, watched the justice system fail her, watched powerful people crush her attempts at truth. She had been alone with her grief and her rage for 3 years. I don't forgive you, I said finally. Nicole nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. But I understand something I didn't before. I stood up slowly. David took Emma from you. He almost took me from Lily. And in trying to stop him, you almost became him. I paused at the door. I hope you get the help you need, Nicole. And I hope, someday, you find a way to honor Emma that doesn't require destroying yourself. Nicole looked up at me, something like desperate hope in her eyes. Will you tell Lily about Emma someday? When she's older? That there was a woman who wanted to name her baby Lily too? I thought about my daughter, sleeping peacefully at Karen's house, about all the stories I would tell her, about the complicated truth of how she came to exist. Yes, I said. I'll tell her. I walked out of the interview room, leaving Nicole Reed and all her broken pieces behind. But I carried Emma with me. Karen Mitchell was waiting for me when I arrived at her house Sunday morning. She stood in the doorway, Lily on her hip, her face a mask of controlled emotion, but I could see the cracks, the redness around her eyes, the slight tremor in her hands, the way she held my daughter like she might never hold her again. Sarah. Her voice was hoarse. I saw the news. Is it true? I took Lily from her arms, pressing my face against my daughter's soft hair, breathing her in. She squirmed happily, unaware that her world had shattered overnight. It's true, I said. David tried to kill me. And 3 years ago, he killed someone else. Karen's face crumpled. For a moment, she looked every one of her 63 years old and broken and utterly lost. Come inside, she whispered. Please, I need to tell you something. We sat in her living room, Lily playing with blocks on the floor between us. Karen's house was immaculate. As always, antique furniture, fresh flowers, family photographs in silver frames. I used to find it intimidating. Now I saw it for what it was. A carefully constructed facade, hiding whatever darkness lay beneath. I knew, Karen said quietly. My blood went cold. You knew. What? Not everything. Not the details. She stared at her hands, unable to meet my eyes. But I knew David had problems. Since he was a teenager, what kind of problems? Karen was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely audible. He hurt animals. When he was 14, the neighbor's cat disappeared, and I found things in his room. I told Richard. He said boys would be boys. That David just needed discipline. That we shouldn't make a big deal out of it. My stomach turned. And you believed him? I wanted to believe him. Richard was a judge. He knew about criminals, about warning signs. If he said David was fine, then David was fine. Karen's voice cracked. I was a coward. I saw what I wanted to see. What about Emma? I asked. Did you know about Emma Reed? Karen flinched at the name. Not while it was happening. Richard handled everything. He just told me there had been some unpleasantness. A girl making accusations. He said it was handled. Handled. The word tasted bitter. A 25-year-old pregnant woman died, and your husband called it handled. I didn't know she was pregnant. Karen's voice rose, defensive. I didn't know any of the details until after Richard died. I found files in his study, documents about the investigation, about witnesses who'd been paid off, about evidence that had been destroyed. She looked at me with devastated eyes. I realized then what my son had done. what my husband had helped him cover up. But Richard was gone. David seemed happy with you. And I thought maybe he'd changed. Maybe having a family would fix whatever was broken inside him. Fix him? I couldn't keep the fury from my voice. You thought a wife and baby would fix a murderer? I didn't know what else to do. Karen was crying now, tears streaming down her face. He's my son, my only child. I couldn't turn him in. I couldn't destroy him. So I prayed. I watched. I told myself that if I saw any sign, any warning, I would speak up. And did you? See warnings? Karen's silence was answer enough. I stood up, lifting Lily into my arms. You knew, I said, my voice shaking. Maybe not everything, but enough. You knew your son was dangerous, and you let me marry him anyway. You let me have his child. You watched him hire Nicole, knowing she might be connected to Emma somehow. I didn't know about Nicole. I swear, but you suspected. You must have suspected something. I held Lily tighter, feeling her warmth against my chest. And you said nothing, because protecting your son was more important than protecting me. Karen reached toward me, desperate. Sarah, please. I love Lily. I love you. I never wanted. What you wanted doesn't matter anymore. I stepped back, out of her reach. David is going to prison. For Emma's murder. And for trying to murder me. And when Lily is old enough to understand, I'm going to tell her the truth. All of it. Please. Karen's voice broke. Don't take her from me. She's all I have left. I looked at this woman, my mother-in-law, my daughter's grandmother, a woman who had spent decades looking away from the monster she'd raised. Part of me wanted to walk out and never look back, but Lily was gurgling happily, reaching toward the blocks on the floor. She didn't know her grandmother had failed her. She only knew that this was a place where someone loved her. I'm not going to cut you out of her life, I said finally. Lily deserves to know her grandmother. But things are going to change, Karen. No more secrets. No more looking away. If you want to be part of our lives, you're going to have to earn it. Karen nodded frantically, tears still flowing. Yes. Anything. I'll do anything. You can start by telling Detective Santos everything you know. The files Richard kept. The witnesses who were paid off. Everything. I will. I promise. I walked toward the door, pausing at the threshold. One more thing. Did Richard keep any records about the auto shop? The place where David bought the tools to sabotage Emma's brakes? Karen's face went pale. How did you? Nicole has the receipt. But if Richard documented it, there might be more evidence. More proof that this was premeditated. Karen nodded slowly. There's a safe. In Richard's study. I never opened it after he died. But I know the combination. Thanks for watching. And the next time. This is Next Time Combination. Give it to Detective Santos. Today, I walked out into the morning sunlight, Lily babbling in my arms. Behind me, I heard Karen sink to the floor. Sobbing, I didn't look back. Richard Mitchell's safe was hidden behind a painting of bluebonnets in his study. I stood in the doorway while Detective Santos worked the combination Karen had provided. Rachel was beside me, her hand on my shoulder, a silent presence of support. Karen waited in the living room, too ashamed to watch. The safe clicked open. Santos pulled out the contents carefully, laying each item on Richard's mahogany desk. File folders, a leather-bound journal, a USB drive, and at the bottom, wrapped in a cloth, something that made Santos's breath catch. Brake line cutters, she said quietly. With what looks like dried hydraulic fluid, the murder weapon. Richard Mitchell had kept the murder weapon. Why? I breathed. Why would he keep this? Insurance, Rachel said grimly. Against his own son. If David ever turned on him, or became too much of a liability, Richard had everything he needed to destroy him. Santos was already pulling on gloves, bagging the cutters for evidence. There's more. A lot more. The files told the story of a cover-up so thorough it made me sick. Richard had documented everything, not out of guilt, but out of meticulous self-preservation. Every witness who'd been paid, every police officer who'd been pressured, every piece of evidence that had been lost. Margaret Chen, Santos read aloud. Neighbor who saw David's car at Emma's apartment the night before. Paid $15,000 for her silence and relocated to Florida. She turned the page. Officer Thomas Reyes, first responder to the accident scene, noted suspicious damage to brake lines in his initial report. Report was altered before filing. Reyes transferred to a desk job in records. My hands were shaking. How many people knew? At least a dozen, based on these files. Santos's voice was tight with controlled fury. A dozen people who could have spoken up, could have gotten justice for Emma Reed, and they all stayed silent because a judge told them to. Can you prosecute them? Rachel asked. The witnesses who took money? The officers who looked away? Statute of limitations on most of it. But Santos held up the USB drive. If this contains what I think it contains, we won't need them. No, we'll have everything we need to convict David from his own father's records. The USB drive contained videos. Richard had installed security cameras in his own study, paranoid, even in his own home. And on one of those recordings, dated October 12th, 2022, 2 days before Emma's death, David Mitchell sat across from his father and confessed. She won't listen, David said on the screen, his voice whiny, petulant, nothing like the charming man I'd married. She's going to ruin everything. What do you want me to do? Richard's voice was cold, businesslike. I don't know. Talk to her? Pay her off? Something. I've tried. She rejected the money. A pause. There's another option. David looked up. What? Make the problem disappear. Permanently. I watched my husband's face on the screen, watched him process what his father was suggesting. Watched him nod slowly. Leave that to me. I know people. Mechanics who owe me favors. Just make sure you have an alibi for Friday night. The video ended. I couldn't breathe. I had known David was a murderer. I had known his father helped cover it up. But watching them discuss Emma's death like a business transaction coldly, calmly, without a shred of remorse, was something else entirely. It wasn't just David, I said, my voice hollow. His father orchestrated the whole thing. Richard Mitchell was the mastermind, Santos confirmed. David was the beneficiary, but Richard arranged the murder, hired whoever tampered with the brakes, coordinated the cover-up. Why? Why would a judge help his son commit murder? Legacy. Rachel's voice was bitter. The Mitchell name, the political connections. A scandal like an illegitimate child with a working-class receptionist would have destroyed everything Richard built. I thought of Karen, waiting in the other room. Did she know? Had she suspected, all those years, that her husband was capable of ordering a young woman's death? There's one more thing. Santos was holding a document from the stack, an official-looking form with a state seal. Emma Reed's autopsy report. The real one. The real one? The official report said cause of death was blunt force trauma from the car accident. But this Santos laid it on the desk. This shows she was 4 months pregnant at time of death. And it shows she had bruising on her arms and neck, consistent with a struggle. Someone hurt her before she got in that car. David, I whispered. The evidence suggests she didn't go willingly. She may have discovered what he was planning. There may have been a confrontation. Santos met my eyes. Emma Reed fought for her life. Sarah. And now, finally. 3 hours later, I sat in Santos's office while she made calls. The DA's office. The FBI. The State Attorney General, Richard Mitchell, had been a federal judge before his state appointment. His corruption might extend further than anyone realized. Rachel sat beside me, reviewing the evidence with the precision of a surgeon. Conspiracy to commit murder. First-degree murder. Obstruction of justice. Evidence tampering. Witness intimidation. She looked up, David is looking at life without parole. Possibly multiple life sentences. What about Nicole? Her cooperation is valuable. She'll face charges conspiracy. Probably, but with what she's providing, the DA will likely offer a deal. 5 to 8 years. Maybe less. 5 to 8 years. For being willing to let me die, but also for being the person who finally brought the truth to light. And me? I asked. What happens now? Santos hung up the phone and turned to face me. Now, you testify. You tell your story to a grand jury, and we indict David Mitchell for the attempted murder of Sarah Mitchell and the murder of Emma Reed. When? The grand jury convenes Wednesday. Santos leaned forward. I know this has been the worst weekend of your life, but it's almost over. We have everything we need. David is never going to hurt anyone again. I thought of Emma, 25 years old, 4 months pregnant, fighting for her life in the last moments before her car went off a cliff. I thought of Lily, innocent and perfect, sleeping peacefully at home with a babysitter Rachel had arranged. I thought of Nicole, sitting in a cell, carrying 3 years of grief and rage and guilt. I'll testify, I said. For Emma, for Lily, for every woman David and his father thought they could silence. Santos nodded. Something like respect in her eyes. Then let's finish this. The grand jury room was smaller than I expected. 12 strangers sat in tiered rows, their faces carefully neutral. A court reporter typed silently in the corner. The assistant district attorney, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Vega, stood at a podium, ready to guide me through the worst moments of my life. State your name for the record, Vega said. Sarah Mitchell. I paused. Soon to be Sarah Chen again. My maiden name. Mrs. Mitchell. Miss Chen, please describe the events of October 17th, beginning with when you first discovered the nanny cam footage. I told them everything. The footage of David and Nicole on the couch. The emails going back 6 months. The gambling debts totaling $847,000. The life insurance policy worth $4 million if I died in an accident. The drugged wine. The stares. David's hands around my throat. The jury listened in absolute silence. And when the defendant attacked you, Vega continued. What did Nicole Reed do? She refused to help him. She said I swallowed hard. She said she couldn't become the monster she was fighting against. And then she told me about Emma Reed. The defendant's previous victim. Yes. Nicole's sister. She was pregnant with David's child when he killed her 3 years ago. A murmur rippled through the jury. Vega let it settle before continuing. Did Nicole Reed explain her involvement in the conspiracy against you? She did. She said she'd been planning revenge against David for 3 years. She contacted him, pretended to be an ally, and waited for him to reveal his true nature. I met the eyes of the jurors one by one. She was going to use my attempted murder to finally get justice for Emma. And did she express remorse for her role in the conspiracy? I thought of Nicole in that interview room, tears streaming down her face, of the woman who had held my daughter with genuine tenderness, even while planning to let me die. Yes, I said quietly. She did. The prosecution called Nicole next. She walked into the room in an orange jumpsuit, her hands cuffed in front of her, a guard on either side. She looked small, fragile, nothing like the confident nanny who had charmed her way into my home. Miss Reed, Vega began, you've agreed to testify in exchange for a reduced sentence. Is that correct? Please describe your relationship with the defendant. David Mitchell. Nicole took a deep breath. I first contacted David 18 months ago. I told him I was Emma's sister, which is true, and that I had evidence connecting him to her death. But I lied about my intentions. I told him I hated Emma, that I wanted to help him, that we could be allies. Why did you do this? Because I'd tried everything else. Nicole's voice cracked. I went to the police twice. Both times, my complaints disappeared. David's father, Judge Richard Mitchell, had too much power. The only way to get justice was to catch David myself. So you manipulated him into revealing his plan to murder Sarah Mitchell? Yes. I let him think I was willing to help. I gathered evidence recordings, messages, documents, and when he told me about the insurance scheme, I knew I finally had what I needed. But you were prepared to let Mrs. Mitchell die. Nicole flinched. I told myself I'd stop it before that happened, that I'd find a way to save her without revealing my involvement. She looked at me, her eyes filled with anguish. But the truth is, I don't know. I was so consumed by revenge that I almost became the thing I hated. What changed? Lily. Nicole's voice broke. Sarah's daughter. I watched them together the way Sarah loved her, the way Lily lit up when her mother walked in the room, and I realized I was about to destroy something beautiful. Just like David destroyed Emma. She wiped her eyes with her cuffed hands. I couldn't do it. When the moment came, I couldn't help him. And I'm grateful every day that I made that choice. The final witness was Detective Maya Santos. She presented the evidence methodically. The files from Richard's safe, the brake line cutters, the video confession, the altered autopsy report. She explained the 3-year cover-up. The witnesses who'd been paid off. The police officers who'd been pressured into silence. In your professional opinion, Vega asked, was Emma Reed's death an accident? No. Santos's voice was firm. Emma Reed was murdered. The evidence is overwhelming. Her brake lines were deliberately sabotaged, and the video recording from Judge Mitchell's study shows both father and son discussing the plan 2 days before her death. And the defendant's attack on Sarah Mitchell? Premeditated attempted murder. We have 6 months of documented communication between the defendant and Nicole Reed, financial evidence establishing motive, and footage of the attack itself. Santos looked at the jury. David Mitchell is a calculated predator who has killed once and attempted to kill again. Without intervention, he will do it again. The room was silent. Vega turned to the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, the state asks for indictments on the following charges. First-degree murder in the death of Emma Reed. Attempted first-degree murder of Sarah Mitchell. Conspiracy to commit murder. Obstruction of justice. And evidence tampering. The jury foreman nodded and called for a vote. One by one, 12 hands went up. Unanimous. I stood outside the courthouse as the afternoon sun warmed my face. David would be arraigned tomorrow. Bail would almost certainly be denied. He was a flight risk. A danger to the community, a man with nothing left to lose. The trial would take months. But with the evidence we had, conviction was all but certain. Rachel found me on the steps, 2 cups of coffee in her hands. You okay? I took the coffee, letting the warmth seep into my palms. I keep waiting to feel relieved, or happy, or something, but I just feel empty. That's normal. Rachel sat beside me. You've been running on adrenaline for days. When it finally stops, there's always a crash. What happens now? Now, you go home. You hold your daughter. You start figuring out what the rest of your life looks like. Rachel squeezed my shoulder. The hard part is over, Sarah. You survived. I thought about Emma, who hadn't survived. About Nicole, who had let grief twist her into something unrecognizable. About Karen, who had spent decades looking away from the truth. About David, who had charmed me and married me and planned to kill me without a moment's hesitation. The hard part isn't over, I said quietly. The hard part is learning to trust again. Learning to believe that not everyone is hiding something terrible. Learning to let Lily grow up without being afraid of the world. Rachel was quiet for a moment. You'll figure it out, she said finally. One day at a time. I looked up at the sky, clear and blue and infinite. One day at a time. It would have to be enough. I almost didn't go. Rachel had offered to represent me in absentia, to spare me the trauma of seeing David again. But something pulled me toward that courtroom, a need to witness the moment when the man who'd planned my murder finally faced consequences. The gallery was packed. Reporters, curious onlookers. a handful of Emma Reed's friends who had waited 3 years for this day. I sat in the front row, with Rachel on one side and Detective Santos on the other. The door opened, and David walked in. He was wearing an orange jumpsuit, his hands cuffed in front of him, his ankles shackled. The charming financial advisor, the devoted husband, the doting father was gone. In his place was a hollow-eyed man who looked like he hadn't slept in days. Our eyes met across the courtroom. For a moment, I saw something flicker in his gaze. Regret? Desperation? Calculation? Before his expression hardened into stone. "All rise," the bailiff called. The Honorable Judge Patricia Mendez, presiding. The charges were read aloud, each one landing like a hammer blow. David Andrew Mitchell, you are charged with murder in the first degree in the death of Emma Reed. You are charged with attempted murder in the first degree of Sarah Mitchell. You are charged with conspiracy to commit murder, obstruction of justice, evidence tampering, and witness intimidation. Judge Mendez looked up from her papers. How does the defendant plead? David's attorney, a slick-haired man named Harrison Cole, stepped forward. Not guilty, Your Honor. On all counts. A murmur rippled through the gallery. I felt Rachel tense beside me. The defense requests bail, Cole continued. My client has no prior criminal record, deep ties to the community, and, Your Honor, Ada Vega rose from the prosecution table. The state vigorously opposes bail. The defendant is charged with 1 murder and 1 attempted murder. He has significant financial resources and every incentive to flee. We have video evidence of him planning the murder of Emma Reed with his father, and camera footage of him attacking Sarah Mitchell in her own home. The video was obtained without proper warrant, Cole began. The video was recorded by the defendant's own father in his private study. There's no Fourth Amendment violation. Judge Mendez held up a hand. I've reviewed the evidence submitted by the prosecution. Mr. Cole, your client is accused of premeditated murder and a documented attempted murder. He poses a clear danger to the community, particularly to the surviving victim. She turned to David. Bail is denied. The defendant will remain in custody pending trial. David's composure cracked. This is insane. He lunged toward the bench, chains rattling. Guards grabbed him immediately, forcing him back. I didn't kill anyone. Sarah, tell them this is a mistake. I stared at him, this man I had shared a bed with, made a child with, built what I thought was a life with, and felt nothing but cold clarity. Tell them! David's voice rose to a shriek. I'm your husband, the father of your daughter. You can't do this to me. I stood up slowly. The courtroom went silent. You're not my husband anymore, I said, my voice steady. You're the man who murdered Emma Reed, the man who tried to murder me, and the man who will never see Lily again. David's face twisted with rage. You'll regret this. When the truth comes out, when everyone sees what you and that crazy bitch Nicole did to set me up. Remove the defendant, Judge Mendez ordered. The guards dragged David toward the side door, his threats echoing off the walls. This isn't over, Sarah. This will never be over. The door slammed shut behind him. I stood in the hallway afterward, my hands still shaking. Rachel brought me water. Santos checked in before heading back to the station. Reporters shouted questions that I ignored, their cameras flashing like strobes. And then I saw her. Nicole stood at the far end of the corridor, flanked by 2 guards. She was being transported back to her holding cell, her arraignment scheduled for later that afternoon. Our eyes met. She didn't speak, neither did I. But something passed between us, an acknowledgement, maybe, a recognition of everything we'd both lost and survived. Then the guards led her away, and she was gone. I picked up Lily from Rachel's mother's house that afternoon. She squealed when she saw me, reaching out with chubby arms, her smile so pure it made my chest ache. I held her close, breathing in her baby smell, feeling her heart beat against mine. Da-da-da, she babbled happily. The word hit me like a punch. She would ask about him someday. about why he wasn't there, about what happened, about who her father really was, and I would have to find a way to tell her the truth without destroying her. It's just us now, baby girl, I whispered against her hair. Just you and me. Lily grabbed my nose and laughed. I carried her to the car, strapped her into her car seat, and drove away from the courthouse, away from David, away from the life that had nearly killed me. The radio played softly, some song about new beginnings that I'd never heard before but somehow knew by heart. Lily fell asleep somewhere on the highway, her small chest rising and falling with peaceful breaths. I watched her in the rearview mirror and made a promise. I would tell her about Emma someday. About the aunt she never met, the cousin she almost had. About Nicole, who had done terrible things for understandable reasons. About Karen, who was trying to make amends. But not about David. Not the real David. She would know her father was in prison. She would know he'd done bad things. But she wouldn't know the details. Not until she was old enough to understand that monsters sometimes wear familiar faces. For now, she would know only this: that her mother loved her, that she was safe, that she was wanted, and that would have to be enough. 4 months later, the trial began. Spring had arrived in Austin. Bluebonnets blanketing the hillsides, the air warm and sweet with possibility. I had spent those 4 months rebuilding. Sold the house that David had tried to make my grave. Moved into a small apartment closer to Rachel. Started therapy twice a week at first, then weekly, as the nightmares began to fade. Watched Lily take her first steps, say her first real word. Mama, thank God, not Dada. Grow from an infant into a toddler with opinions and preferences, and a laugh that could light up any room. I was healing. Slowly, painfully, but healing. And now I had to tear open those wounds one more time. The courtroom was packed for opening statements. Media from across the country had descended on Austin. The case had everything: a murdered pregnant woman, a corrupt judge, a nanny turned avenger, an insurance scheme straight out of a thriller novel. Court TV was broadcasting live. True crime podcasts had devoted entire seasons to analyzing every detail. I sat in the front row, Rachel beside me, Santos behind us. Across the aisle, Karen Mitchell sat alone, her face pale and drawn. She had kept her promise, testified before the grand jury, turned over all of Richard's files, cooperated fully with the investigation. But the weight of what her family had done was slowly crushing her. David entered through the side door, flanked by guards. He had changed in 4 months, lost weight, grown a beard that was more gray than brown. The arrogant confidence was gone, replaced by something harder, more desperate. When his eyes found mine across the courtroom, I saw nothing but hatred. I held his gaze until he looked away. Ada Vega delivered the prosecution's opening statement. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is about a man who believed he was above the law. A man who murdered his pregnant girlfriend when she threatened to expose their affair. A man whose father, a sitting federal judge, helped him cover up that crime. And a man who, 3 years later, attempted to murder his own wife for a $4 million insurance payout. She walked slowly in front of the jury box, letting her words sink in. You will hear testimony from Sarah Mitchell, who survived her husband's attack only because she discovered his plan in time. You will hear from Nicole Reed, the sister of David Mitchell's first victim, who spent 3 years gathering evidence to bring him to justice. You will see video footage of the defendant and his father discussing Emma Reed's murder 2 days before it happened. Vega paused, her expression grave. David Mitchell is a predator. He is charming, intelligent, and utterly without conscience. He murdered Emma Reed because she was inconvenient. He tried to murder Sarah Mitchell because she was profitable, and if we don't stop him, he will do it again. She returned to her seat. Judge Mendez nodded to the defense table. Mr. Cole, your opening statement. Harrison Cole rose with the practiced ease of a man who had defended the indefensible before. Ladies and gentlemen, what you've just heard is a story. A compelling story, I'll grant you, but a story nonetheless. He straightened his tie, offering the jury a sympathetic smile. The prosecution wants you to believe that David Mitchell is a monster. But the truth is far more complicated. He began to pace, his voice taking on a confidential tone. My client is not a murderer. He is a man who made mistakes, serious mistakes, yes, but mistakes born of desperation, not malice. He fell into gambling addiction. He accrued debts he couldn't pay, and in his darkest moments, he confided in the wrong person. Cole pointed at the empty witness stand. Nicole Reed approached my client with a proposition. She manipulated him, exploited his vulnerabilities, and orchestrated an elaborate scheme to frame him for her sister's death. A death that was ruled an accident by multiple investigators. I felt my jaw clench. Rachel's hand found mine, squeezing tight. As for the alleged attack on Sarah Mitchell, you will hear testimony that my client never intended to harm his wife, that he was acting in self-defense after she confronted him with wild accusations, that the so-called murder plot was nothing more than anxious conversations taken out of context by a paranoid woman with a hidden camera. Cole turned to face me directly, his expression almost pitying. Sarah Mitchell is not a victim. She is a woman who discovered her husband's infidelity, installed surveillance equipment without his knowledge, and worked with a convicted criminal to destroy his life. The real conspiracy here is not against Mrs. Mitchell, it is against David Mitchell. He sat down, leaving a poisonous silence in his wake. I couldn't breathe. The audacity of it, the shameless lies, the twisting of truth made me want to scream. They're going to try to make you the villain, she had said. They're going to paint Nicole as the mastermind and you as her accomplice. Don't let them get in your head. Easier said than done. Judge Mendez called for a brief recess. I escaped to the hallway, gulping air like I'd been drowning. Santos found me by the water fountain. Don't let Cole rattle you, she said quietly. He's good at what he does, but we're better. We have the evidence. We have the truth. He made it sound like I'm the criminal. That's his job. He can't dispute the facts, so he's attacking the narrative. Santos met my eyes. You know what really happened in that house. The jury will too, once they see the footage. I thought of the video, David's hands around my throat, his voice snarling that I'd ruined everything. No amount of spin could explain that away. When do I testify? Tomorrow. Prosecution's putting you on first. Santos's expression softened. Just tell the truth, Sarah. That's all you have to do. The truth is enough. I nodded, steadying myself. The truth. After all the lies, David's lies, Nicole's manipulation, Richard's cover-up. Tomorrow, I would find out. Please state your name for the record. Sarah Mitchell. I paused, then corrected myself. Sarah Chen. I've filed for divorce and am returning to my maiden name. The witness stand felt like standing in the center of a spotlight. Every eye in the courtroom was fixed on me, the jury, the judge, the reporters scribbling in their notebooks, the cameras recording every micro-expression, and David, sitting at the defense table, watching me with cold, unblinking eyes. Ada Vega guided me through my testimony with practiced precision. The nanny cam footage, the emails, the financial records. The night David's hands closed around my throat, I told the truth. Every painful, humiliating detail of it. When Vega finished, she gave me a small nod of encouragement and returned to her seat. Judge Mendez turned to the defense table. Mr. Cole, your witness. Harrison Cole rose slowly, buttoning his jacket. His smile was sympathetic, almost gentle. The smile of a man about to slide a knife between your ribs. Miss Chen, he began, I'm sorry for everything you've been through. Truly. I said nothing. Let me start with the nanny cam. You installed hidden surveillance equipment in your home without your husband's knowledge. Is that correct? Because I was worried about leaving my daughter with a stranger you had thoroughly vetted, a stranger with impeccable references. Cole tilted his head. Or was there another reason? Perhaps you suspected your husband of infidelity. No. I trusted David completely. Did you? Cole picked up a document from his table. I have here records showing that you searched the term signs of cheating husband on your phone approximately 2 weeks before installing the camera. My stomach dropped. I had forgotten about that search, a moment of paranoid anxiety after David had come home late one night. I was just being paranoid. Paranoid. Cole nodded thoughtfully. You've used that word before. The prosecution has used it too, to describe the defense's characterization of you. But isn't it true that you have a history of anxiety? That you've been in therapy for years? I've been in therapy since the attack. Yes, before the attack. You were prescribed anti-anxiety medication 3 years ago, weren't you? I felt the trap closing around me. I had some anxiety after my miscarriages. That's normal. Of course it is. No one is judging you for that. Cole's voice dripped with false compassion. But isn't it possible that your anxiety led you to misinterpret what you saw on that footage? That you heard your husband and the nanny discussing something innocent and, in your paranoid state, assumed the worst? They were planning to kill me. They were having a conversation that you interpreted as a murder plot. Cole turned to the jury. Miss Chen's own therapist has noted her tendency toward catastrophic thinking. Isn't it possible? Objection. Vega was on her feet. The defense is attempting to use the witness's mental health treatment against her. This is prejudicial and irrelevant. Sustained. Judge Mendez gave Cole a warning look. Move on. Counselor. Cole shifted tactics seamlessly. Let's talk about Nicole Reed. You've testified that she revealed the conspiracy to you during the alleged attack. But isn't it true that you had multiple private conversations with Miss Reed before that night? She was our nanny. Of course we talked. Did she ever express hostility toward your husband during those conversations? Did she ever mention her sister, Emma Reed? So, you had no idea that Nicole Reed had been planning revenge against your husband for 3 years. No idea that she had manipulated her way into your home specifically to destroy him. I found out the night he tried to kill me. Or, Cole held up a finger. You found out earlier, and you decided to help her. The accusation hung in the air. That's insane. Is it? You discovered your husband was having an affair with the nanny. You discovered he had gambling debts. And instead of confronting him, you installed cameras, gathered evidence, and waited for the perfect moment to spring a trap. Cole's voice hardened. You didn't discover a murder plot, Miss Chen. You created one. I was trying to survive. My voice cracked, tears burning my eyes. He had his hands around my throat. He was going to push me down the stairs. I have the footage. The whole world has seen the footage. Footage that shows a man defending himself against a wife who had just accused him of murder. Footage that could easily be interpreted as a struggle, not an attack. He confessed. On his father's security camera, a recording made without his knowledge, in a private conversation with his deceased father. Hearsay, some might argue. Cole turned back to the jury, spreading his hands. Ladies and gentlemen, the prosecution wants you to believe that David Mitchell is a cold-blooded killer. But what I see is a man who was manipulated by 2 women with their own agendas, a vengeful sister and a suspicious wife, and is now paying the price for their conspiracy. I was shaking when I stepped down from the stand. Rachel caught me in the hallway, wrapping her arms around me as I sobbed against her shoulder. He twisted everything, I gasped. He made me sound crazy. He made me sound like the villain. He tried. Rachel's voice was fierce, but the jury saw the footage. Sarah. They heard David's voice on that video with his father. No amount of spin can erase that. What if it's not enough? What if they believe him? Rachel pulled back, gripping my shoulders. Look at me. You survived. You told the truth. And tomorrow, Nicole testifies. She's going to corroborate everything, the 6 months of planning, David's confession about Emma. All of it. But Cole will attack her too. She's a convicted conspirator. Why would anyone believe her? Because the evidence backs her up. The brake line cutters in Richard's safe. The autopsy showing Emma was pregnant. The video of David and his father planning her murder. Rachel's eyes were steady. The truth is like water, Sarah. It finds every crack. And there are too many cracks in David's story for him to hold it together. I wiped my eyes, trying to steady my breathing. What happens now? Now. We let the prosecution finish building their case, and we trust the jury to see what's right in front of them. I looked back at the courtroom doors at the battlefield where my life had been dissected for public consumption. David was in there, probably smiling, probably thinking he'd won this round. But the trial wasn't over, and neither was I. Nicole took the stand on the third day of trial. She walked to the witness box with her head held high, despite the orange jumpsuit, despite the shackles, despite the weight of everything she'd done and everything she'd lost. Her honey blonde hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and without makeup, she looked younger than her 28 years. She looked like Emma. Miss Reed, Ada Vega began. You've pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit murder in exchange for your testimony today. Is that correct? And you understand that your sentence will depend in part on the truthfulness of your testimony? I do. Then let's start at the beginning. Tell the jury about your sister, Emma. Nicole's composure flickered. She took a breath, steadying herself. Emma was 3 years older than me. She was smart and kind and stubborn. The kind of person who couldn't walk past a stray dog without trying to help it. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. She wanted to be a nurse. She was saving money for school, working as a receptionist, dreaming about the future. And how did she meet the defendant? At her job. He came in for a meeting, and Nicole's voice hardened. He noticed her, started showing up with flowers, taking her to expensive restaurants, telling her he was separated from his wife, that the divorce was almost final. Was any of that true? No. David Mitchell wasn't even married at the time. He was single, charming, and looking for someone vulnerable to manipulate. Nicole looked directly at David. He found her. The courtroom was silent as Nicole described the affair, the promises David made, the future he painted. The way Emma slowly fell in love with a man who saw her as nothing more than entertainment. When did things change? Vega asked. When she got pregnant. Nicole's hands clenched in her lap. She was terrified at first, but then she got excited. She started buying baby clothes, picking out names. She wanted to name the baby Lily if it was a girl. I felt my breath catch. Beside me, Rachel squeezed my hand. She told David about the pregnancy, expecting him to be happy. Instead, he gave her money and told her to take care of it. When she refused, he said he'd deny everything, said no one would believe a receptionist over a Mitchell. What did Emma do? She told him she didn't need him, that she'd raise the baby alone. Nicole's voice cracked. She said her child would know what love looked like, even if its father didn't. And 2 weeks later, her car went off. Highway 71. The police said it was brake failure. An accident. Nicole looked at the jury, tears streaming down her face. But it wasn't an accident. David Mitchell cut her brake lines. He murdered my sister and my niece because they were inconvenient. Cole's cross-examination was brutal. Miss Reed, you've admitted to conspiracy to commit murder. You spent 18 months manipulating your way into the Mitchell household. You were prepared to let Sarah Mitchell die, so you're a liar. A manipulator. A would-be murderer. Yes. Nicole's voice didn't waver. I'm all of those things. Then why should this jury believe a single word you say? Nicole was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was steady. Because I have nothing left to gain by lying. I've already pleaded guilty. I'm going to prison regardless of what happens in this courtroom. The only thing I have left is the truth. The truth as you see it. The truth as it is. Nicole turned to face the jury. I spent 3 years trying to get justice for my sister through legal channels. I went to the police twice. Both times, my complaints disappeared. David's father was a federal judge. He had the power to make problems go away, and my sister's murder was just another problem. So you took matters into your own hands. Yes. I manipulated David. I let him think I was his ally. I waited for him to reveal his true nature. Nicole's eyes found mine in the gallery. And when he decided to kill Sarah, I finally had what I needed. Another victim. Another murder plot. A pattern that even the Mitchell family couldn't cover up. You used Sarah Mitchell as bait. Yes. Nicole's voice broke. And I will regret that for the rest of my life. She didn't deserve to be a pawn in my revenge. Her daughter didn't deserve to almost lose her mother. She wiped her eyes with her shackled hands. But I didn't kill anyone. I didn't cut anyone's brake lines. I didn't wrap my hands around anyone's throat. She pointed at David. He did, and no amount of legal maneuvering can change that. The prosecution rested that afternoon. I sat in the hallway during the break, processing everything I'd heard. Nicole's testimony had been devastating, not just for David, but for me. Hearing her describe Emma, the baby that never was, the name that had somehow found its way to my own daughter, it felt like fate. Or cruelty. Or both. Rachel found me staring at the wall. You okay? She was going to name her baby Lily. My voice came out hollow. If David had let Emma live, there would have been a Lily 3 years before mine. A different Lily. A cousin my daughter will never know. Rachel sat beside me. The universe works in strange ways. Is that supposed to make me feel better? No. It's supposed to remind you that meaning doesn't always come from understanding. Sometimes, it just comes from surviving. I thought about Emma, who hadn't survived. About Nicole, who had survived but lost herself in the process. About Lily, sleeping peacefully at home, named for a ghost she would never meet. What happens now? I asked. Closing arguments tomorrow. Then, it goes to the jury. How long? Could be hours. Could be days. Rachel met my eyes. But we're almost there, Sarah. One way or another, this ends soon. I looked toward the courtroom, where David was probably conferring with his lawyer, probably still believing he could talk his way out of this. One way or another. I just had to hold on a little longer. Closing arguments began at 9 a.m. on the 4th day. Harrison Cole went first, spending an hour weaving a narrative of manipulation and conspiracy. Nicole was the mastermind. I was her willing accomplice. David was an imperfect man, yes, but not a murderer, just a desperate gambler who had fallen prey to 2 women, determined to destroy him. Reasonable doubt, Cole concluded, turning to the jury. That's all I'm asking you to consider. Not certainty, not proof beyond all doubt, just reasonable doubt. And if you have any at all, then you must acquit. He sat down, looking satisfied. Then Patricia Vega rose. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. The defense has spent this trial asking you to disbelieve what you've seen with your own eyes, to question the testimony of survivors, to imagine elaborate conspiracies where the evidence shows only one thing. A man who murdered once and tried to murder again. She walked to the evidence screen. But I'm not going to ask you to take anyone's word for anything. I'm going to let David Mitchell speak for himself. She pressed play. The video from Richard Mitchell's study filled the screen. I had seen it before in Santos's office, in the grand jury room, in my nightmares. But watching it in open court, with the jury's eyes fixed on the screen, felt different. Final. David's face appeared. Younger, less haggard, but unmistakably him. She won't listen. Video, David said, his voice petulant. I told her to get rid of it, but she's keeping the baby. She's going to ruin everything. Richard's voice, off screen. What do you want me to do? I don't know. Talk to her? Pay her off? Something. I've tried. She rejected the money. A pause. There's another option. Video, David looked up. What? Make the problem disappear. Permanently. The courtroom was absolutely silent. How? Video, David asked. Leave that to me. I know people. Mechanics who owe me favors. Just make sure you have an alibi for Friday night. The video ended. Vega let the silence hang for a long moment before speaking. You just heard David Mitchell and his father discuss the murder of Emma Reed. Not in coded language. Not in ambiguous terms. Make the problem disappear. Permanently. Mechanics, who owe me favors, have an alibi. She turned to face David directly. 2 days after this conversation, Emma Reed's car went off. Highway 71. Brake failure. An accident that killed a 25-year-old woman and her unborn child. Vega walked back to the evidence screen and pulled up another video, the nanny cam footage from my house. And here is David Mitchell, 3 years later, discussing another murder with another woman. The footage played. David and Nicole on the couch, their voices tinny through the speakers. It has to look like an accident. No one can suspect. It will. Trust me. I've thought of everything. Saturday then. While Lily's at my mother's. Vega paused the video. Saturday. While Lily's at my mother's. Not coded. Not ambiguous. A plan to murder Sarah Mitchell while her infant daughter was safely out of the house. She pulled up the final video, the attack. My own footage. Recorded by the security team Rachel had hired. David's hands around my throat. His face twisted with rage. My desperate struggle to break free. This is not a man defending himself, Vega said quietly. Several jurors looked away from the screen. One woman pressed her hand to her mouth. Vega turned to face the jury one final time. The defense wants you to believe in conspiracies, in manipulations, in reasonable doubt. But there is no doubt here. Not reasonable, not unreasonable, not any kind at all. She pointed at David. David Mitchell murdered Emma Reed because she was pregnant with his child and refused to make the problem disappear. He tried to murder Sarah Mitchell because he was $847,000 in debt and she was worth $4 million dead. Her voice rose. He is not a desperate man who made mistakes. He is a predator who calculates the value of human lives and discards them when they become inconvenient. Emma Reed was inconvenient. Sarah Mitchell was profitable. That's all they were to him. Vega walked slowly along the jury box, meeting each juror's eyes. You've seen the videos. You've heard the testimony. You've seen the brake line cutters found in his father's safe, still stained with the hydraulic fluid from Emma Reed's car. The evidence is overwhelming. The guilt is undeniable. She stopped at the center of the room. Emma Reed cannot speak for herself. She died 3 years ago, alone on a dark highway, murdered by a man who promised to love her. But you can speak for her. You can tell the world that her life mattered, that her baby's life mattered, that justice, however delayed, will not be denied. Vega's voice dropped to a near whisper. Find David Mitchell guilty. For Emma. For Sarah. For every woman who has ever been told her life was worth less than a man's convenience. She sat down. The courtroom was silent except for the sound of someone crying softly in the gallery. Judge Mendez addressed the jury with instructions that took nearly an hour, explanations of burden of proof, definitions of the charges, procedures for deliberation. Then the 12 strangers who held David's fate in their hands filed out of the courtroom. I sat frozen in my seat, unable to move. Rachel touched my arm. It's out of our hands now. How long? Could be hours. Could be days. I looked at David, still sitting at the defense table, his lawyer whispering urgently in his ear. He must have felt my gaze, because he turned to look at me. For a long moment, we just stared at each other. The woman he'd tried to kill, and the man who'd almost succeeded. Then David smiled, a cold, confident smile that said he still believed he was going to walk out of this courtroom a free man. I didn't look away, didn't flinch, didn't give him the satisfaction of seeing fear. We'll see, I whispered. The guards led him back to his cell, and I went home to wait. Closing arguments began at 9 a.m. on the 4th day. Harrison Cole went first, spending an hour weaving a narrative of manipulation and conspiracy. Nicole was the mastermind, he argued. Sarah was her willing accomplice. David was a flawed man. Yes, a gambling addict, a poor husband, but not a murderer. The evidence was circumstantial at best, manufactured at worst. Reasonable doubt. Cole repeated like a mantra. That's all you need. One reasonable doubt. Then Patricia Vega stood, and the room fell silent. The defense wants you to believe this is complicated, she began, her voice clear and measured. It's not. David Mitchell murdered Emma Reed because she was pregnant with his child. He attempted to murder Sarah Mitchell because she discovered his secret. And he would have succeeded if not for a teddy bear. She turned to the jury. Let me show you what that teddy bear recorded. The lights dimmed. The screen flickered to life. I'd seen the footage before in Rachel's office, in the police station, in my nightmares, but watching it in this courtroom, with David sitting 20 feet away, felt like reliving the attack all over again. The camera captured everything in crisp, damning detail. Nicole's voice. Asterisk. The wine should take effect within the hour. Asterisk. David's reply. Asterisk. And the stairs will do the rest. Everyone knows she's been stressed. Postpartum depression. A tragic accident. Asterisk. The jury watched in absolute silence. One woman covered her mouth. A man in the back row closed his eyes, then forced them open again. The footage continued, David checking his watch, discussing the insurance payout, laughing about how easy it would be. Asterisk. $4 million. Asterisk. David said on screen. Asterisk. Split it however you want. I just need enough to clear my debts and disappear. Asterisk. Then the confrontation. Me, at the top of the stairs. David's face transforming from confusion to rage. His hands around my throat. The footage captured my gasps, my struggle, the panic button falling from my pocket. It captured David's words as he squeezed. Asterisk. You should have just drunk the wine. Asterisk. When the video ended, no one moved. Vega let the silence hang for a long moment before speaking. Emma Reed was 25 years old. She was going to be a nurse. She wanted to name her baby Lily, the same name David's current daughter bears. David Mitchell killed Emma because she was inconvenient. And he tried to kill Sarah for the same reason. She pointed at the screen. That's not circumstantial evidence. That's not conspiracy. That's a confession, recorded by the victim herself. Cole's closing rebuttal was brief, almost perfunctory. He repeated his claims about manipulation, about reasonable doubt, but his words felt hollow against the weight of what the jury had just witnessed. Judge Mendez gave final instructions at 4:17 p.m. The jury retired to deliberate. Rachel found me in the hallway, staring out a window at the Austin skyline. How long do you think? I asked. With evidence like that? She shook her head. Could be hours. Could be days. Juries are unpredictable. I thought about David's face when the video played. He hadn't looked away, not once. He'd watched himself planning my murder with the same detachment he might show a football replay. What if they believe Cole? I whispered. What if they think Nicole manipulated everything? Sarah. Rachel took my hands. 12 people just watched your husband try to strangle you. They heard him laugh about your death. No amount of reasonable doubt erases that. I wanted to believe her. Detective Santos approached, her expression unreadable. Juries requested dinner. They're deliberating through the night. The waiting began. Rachel and I found a coffee shop across the street. I called the sitter 3 times to check on Lily. I declined 17 interview requests. I watched the courthouse doors like they might explode at any moment. At 11:43 p.m., my phone buzzed. Asterisk. Verdict reached. Report to courtroom. Asterisk. My heart stopped. Then started again, pounding so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. This is it, Rachel said. I stood, steadied myself, and walked back toward the truth. The courtroom felt different at midnight. The fluorescent lights hummed louder. The wooden benches seemed harder. Every breath, every whisper, every rustle of clothing echoed in the silence. I sat in the front row, Rachel on my left, Detective Santos on my right. Behind us, the gallery had thinned, only the devoted remained. Reporters with bloodshot eyes, a sketch artist with cramped fingers, Karen Mitchell, alone in the back corner, clutching a tissue like a lifeline. David was brought in wearing the same navy suit he'd worn all week, but something had changed. His shoulders slumped. His eyes darted between the jury box and the floor. For the first time since this nightmare began, he looked afraid. Good. Judge Mendez entered. And we rose. Saturday. Rose again. As the jury filed in, 12 faces. 12 strangers who held my future in their hands. I tried to read them. The woman in seat 3 had been crying. Her eyes were red, her makeup smeared. The man in seat 7 stared straight ahead, jaw tight. None of them looked at David. That meant something. I just didn't know what. Has the jury reached a verdict? Judge Mendez asked. The foreperson, a middle-aged man with gray temples and kind eyes, stood. We have, Your Honor. The bailiff carried the verdict form to the judge. The defendant will rise. David stood. His attorney placed a hand on his shoulder. On the count of murder in the first degree of Emma Reed, the foreperson read, We, the jury, find the defendant, David Allen Mitchell. The pause lasted a lifetime. Guilty. A sob erupted from somewhere behind me. Karen. Rachel grabbed my hand and squeezed so hard I thought my bones might break. On the count of attempted murder in the first degree, of Sarah Mitchell, guilty. On the count of conspiracy to commit murder, guilty. On the count of obstruction of justice, guilty. On the count of evidence, tampering, guilty. On the count of witness intimidation, guilty. 6 counts. 6 guilty verdicts. Unanimous on all. The courtroom erupted. Reporters rushed for the doors. Camera flashes exploded despite the rules. Someone was crying, maybe me, maybe Rachel, maybe everyone. But I couldn't look away from David. His mask finally shattered. Not slowly, not gracefully. It crumbled all at once, revealing the terrified, desperate man beneath. His knees buckled. Cole caught him before he hit the floor. This isn't over, David shouted as the bailiffs moved toward him. Sarah! Sarah! This isn't you, don't understand! Remove the defendant, Judge Mendez ordered. They dragged him toward the side door. He fought them, straining against their grip. His eyes locked on mine. I loved you, he screamed. Everything I did it for us. For Lily. I stood. The courtroom fell silent, watching, waiting. I walked toward him slowly, deliberately, until only 3 feet separated us. The bailiffs tensed, but didn't intervene. You murdered a pregnant woman, I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. You tried to murder me. You lied to me every day for 4 years. I paused, letting the words sink in. You never loved anyone but yourself. His face twisted rage, desperation, something almost like grief. Sarah, please. Goodbye, David. I turned my back on him and walked away. His screams followed me out of the courtroom. But I didn't look back. Not once. Outside, the Texas night was warm and clear. Stars scattered across the sky like promises. Rachel found me on the courthouse steps, staring at nothing. It's over, she said softly. I shook my head. It's not over. It's just different. Emma is still dead. Lily will grow up without a father. Nicole is still going to prison. I took a shaky breath. Justice doesn't undo anything. It just acknowledges what was done. Rachel sat beside me. That's more than most people get. I know. I wiped my eyes. I know. Detective Santos appeared in the doorway. Sentencing hearing is scheduled for 3 weeks from today. The prosecutor expects life without parole, minimum. Life without parole. David would die in prison. The man I'd married, the father of my daughter, would spend every remaining day behind bars. I should have felt triumphant, vindicated, whole. Instead, I felt hollow. What happens now? I asked. No one in particular. Rachel smiled sadly. Now, you go home. You hug your daughter. You start learning how to live with the truth. I thought of Lily asleep in her crib, blissfully unaware that her father was a monster and her namesake was a ghost. Someday I would have to tell her. Not everything, not yet, but someday. One day at a time, I whispered. Rachel nodded. One day at a time. I stood, brushed off my skirt, and walked toward the parking lot, toward my car, toward my daughter, toward whatever came next. The verdict was in. Now came the hard part. Learning to live again. 3 weeks felt like 3 years. I spent them in a haze of sleepless nights and endless phone calls. Victim advocacy groups reached out. Podcasters begged for interviews. A literary agent left 7 voicemails about my story. I deleted them all. Lily took her first steps on a Tuesday afternoon. I cried for an hour, half joy, half grief, that her father would never see it. Then I remembered what her father had done, and the grief turned to something harder. Something I couldn't name. The morning of the sentencing, I woke before dawn. Rachel picked me up at 7. We didn't speak during the drive. The courtroom was packed. Media in the back rows. Emma's co-workers in the middle. Nicole's mother, a frail woman with Nicole's eyes, sat near the front, clutching a photograph I couldn't quite see. Karen Mitchell sat alone. As always, she'd testified for the prosecution in exchange for immunity. Her cooperation had helped seal her son's fate. I didn't know how to feel about her anymore. Judge Mendez entered at exactly 9 a.m. Before I pronounced sentence, he said, "The court will hear victim impact statements." Nicole's mother spoke first. Her name was Gloria Reed. She was 63 years old, and she'd buried her youngest daughter 4 years ago. Emma wanted to be a nurse, Gloria said, her voice trembling but clear. David Mitchell took that from her. From me. From the grandchild I'll never hold. She turned to face David directly. "I hope you live a very long time," she said. "I hope you wake up every morning in that cell and remember what you did. I hope Emma's face is the last thing you see before you die." David stared at the table. He didn't move. Then it was my turn. I walked to the podium on legs that felt like water. The courtroom blurred faces, lights, cameras, until I found Lily's photo in my pocket. I pressed my thumb against it and began. 4 years ago, I married a man I thought I knew. I built a life with him. I had a daughter with him. My voice cracked, but I pushed through. I trusted him with everything I had. I looked at David. He finally raised his eyes to meet mine. "You drugged my wine. You planned to push me down the stairs. You were going to make it look like an accident, so you could collect $4 million and disappear." I paused. "And then you were going to raise our daughter." "The daughter. You almost made an orphan. The daughter who shares a name with the baby you murdered." The courtroom was silent. "I don't hate you, David. Hate would mean you still have power over me." I took a breath. "But I will never forgive you. And I will spend the rest of my life making sure Lily knows the truth about Emma. About Nicole. About the choices that brought us here. She deserves to know what kind of man her father really was." I stepped back from the podium. "That's all I have to say." Judge Mendez shuffled his papers. "David Allen Mitchell, you have been found guilty of murder in the first degree, attempted murder in the first degree, conspiracy to commit murder, obstruction of justice, evidence tampering, and witness intimidation." He looked up, his eyes cold. "In 32 years on this bench, I have seen terrible things, but I have rarely seen such calculated cruelty. You murdered a pregnant woman to protect your secrets. You attempted to murder the mother of your child for insurance money, and you manipulated everyone around you, including your own mother, to cover your crimes." David's attorney placed a hand on his shoulder. David shrugged it off. "For the murder of Emma Reed, I sentence you to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. For conspiracy, 20 years consecutive. For obstruction, 10 years consecutive. For tampering, 5 years consecutive. For intimidation, 5 years consecutive." He set down his gavel. You will die in prison, Mr. Mitchell. May God have mercy on your soul, because this court has none. The bailiffs moved forward. David stood slowly, mechanically, like a man already dead. But before they reached him, he turned. Sarah, I didn't want to listen. I should have looked away. I'm sorry, he said. His voice was raw, broken. I know it doesn't matter. I know it doesn't change anything. But I need you to know, I never meant for any of this to happen. Emma was a mistake. The debt was a mistake. You were the only good thing in my life. And I destroyed it. I said nothing. Tell Lily. He choked. Tell her I loved her. In whatever way I was capable of loving anyone. Tell her that. The bailiffs took his arms. He didn't resist this time. Goodbye, Sarah. They led him through the side door. It closed with a heavy thunk. He was gone. Outside the courthouse, Karen Mitchell waited by the steps. I almost walked past her. Rachel touched my arm, a silent question. I nodded and approached. Sarah, Karen said. Her voice was hoarse from crying. I know I don't deserve to ask you anything, but I need to know, will I ever see Lily, my granddaughter? I thought about it. Really thought about it. I don't know, I said finally. Maybe someday, but not yet. Not until I can trust that you won't try to defend him to her. Not until I know you've accepted what he did. Karen nodded slowly. I understand. She turned and walked away, smaller than I'd ever seen her. Rachel squeezed my shoulder. Ready to go home? I looked up at the Texas sky, blue and endless and impossibly bright. Yeah, I said. Let's go home. The weeks after sentencing passed in a blur of paperwork and phone calls. I sold the house. I couldn't sleep there anymore, not in the bedroom where David had held me, not in the kitchen where he'd made pancakes the morning he planned to kill me. The realtor called it a motivated sale. I called it survival. Rachel helped me find a small apartment near downtown Austin. 2 bedrooms, a balcony overlooking a park, enough space for Lily to crawl and eventually run. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Ours. The media frenzy lasted longer than I expected. The Nanny Cam murder became a true crime sensation overnight. Podcasters dissected every detail. YouTubers made hour-long documentaries. A producer from Netflix left 3 voicemails about dramatic rights. I ignored them all. Detective Santos called one afternoon with news about Nicole. Plea deal went through, she said. 8 years. Eligible for parole in 5. She cooperated, fully testified against David, provided evidence about Emma's case, helped us identify 2 other women he'd been involved with before you. 2 other women. I wondered if they knew how close they'd come to Emma's fate. How is she? I asked. Santos paused. Complicated. She's relieved it's over, I think. But she'll be carrying Emma's death for the rest of her life and her own choices. That's not something parole erases. I thought about Nicole in that interview room, telling me about Emma's bedtime stories, about the sister who raised her, protected her, believed in her. Can I write to her? That's up to you. I can get you the address if you want it. I said I'd think about it. Lily turned 1 on a Sunday in May. I threw a small party, just Rachel, Santos, and a few neighbors I'd gotten to know. We ate cake and watched Lily smash frosting into her hair. She laughed so hard she hiccuped, and for a moment, just a moment, everything felt normal. That night, after everyone left, I sat on the balcony with a glass of wine I didn't drink. The city lights glittered below. Somewhere out there, David was in a cell. Nicole was in a different cell. Karen was alone in her empty house, surrounded by photographs of a son who no longer existed. And Emma was gone. 4 years gone, but somehow more present than ever. I'd started therapy 2 weeks after the verdict. Dr. Okonkwo was a calm woman with silver locks and a voice like warm honey. She didn't push. She just listened. Survivor's guilt, she'd explained during our 3rd session. You're alive because of a teddy bear and a panic button. Emma died because she trusted the wrong man. Your mind is trying to make sense of the randomness. How do I stop? I'd asked. You don't stop. You learn to carry it differently. The letter arrived on a Tuesday. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting from the notes Nicole used to leave about Lily's naps. My hands trembled as I opened it. Sarah, asterisk, I don't expect you to read this. I don't expect forgiveness or understanding or anything at all, but I need to say some things, even if they disappear into silence. Asterisk, I'm sorry. Not just for what I did, but for what I almost did. There was a moment, one moment, when I considered going through with it, letting David kill you, taking my share, and disappearing. Telling myself it was justice for Emma. Asterisk, but then I heard Lily crying through the monitor. Asterisk. That doesn't make me good. It doesn't make me innocent. But it's the truth. Asterisk. You asked me once if I loved Lily. I do. I loved her from the first moment I held her. She reminded me of everything Emma wanted and never got to have. Asterisk. Take care of her. Tell her about Emma someday, if you can. Tell her that her name means something, that she carries a legacy of love, even if it came from broken people. Asterisk. I won't write again unless you want me to. Asterisk. Nicole, I read it 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and placed it in the drawer where I kept Emma's photograph, the one Gloria had given me after the sentencing. I didn't know if I would write back. I didn't know if I could, but I didn't throw it away. That night, I checked on Lily before bed. She was asleep on her stomach, one fist curled against her cheek, breathing in that slow, peaceful rhythm that only babies achieve. The nightlight cast soft shadows across her crib. I thought about all the people who had shaped her life without her knowing. Emma, who gave her a name. Nicole, who almost destroyed her family but couldn't finish the job. David, who would never hold her again. And me, the mother, who survived. I'll tell you everything someday, I whispered. The good parts and the bad parts. The love and the lies. All of it. Lily stirred but didn't wake. I closed the door softly and went to bed. Tomorrow would bring more paperwork, more decisions, more learning to live with the truth. But tonight, my daughter was safe. My home was quiet. My future was my own. For now, that was enough. 6 months after the sentencing, I drove to Gatesville. The Lane Murray unit sat on flat Texas land, surrounded by razor wire and dust. I'd looked it up online before coming. 2,000 inmates, all women, medium security. Nicole was in the general population now. Her early cooperation, earning her placement in a work program. I still didn't know why I was here. Rachel had asked me the same thing when I told her my plans. Are you sure this is a good idea? She helped plan your murder, Sarah. She also stopped it, I'd said. I need to understand why. The truth was more complicated. Nicole's letter had sat in my drawer for 5 months, unanswered. I'd pulled it out a dozen times, started replies I never finished. Asterisk. Thank you. I hate you. I forgive you. I don't forgive you. Asterisk. None of the words felt right, so I decided to say them in person. The visitation room was smaller than I expected. Plastic chairs bolted to the floor, vending machines humming against the wall. A guard stationed by the door, bored and watchful. Nicole entered in a white uniform, her hair shorter than I remembered, her face thinner. She stopped when she saw me. Something flickering in her eyes, surprise, fear, hope, all tangled together. She sat across from me. Neither of us spoke for a long moment. You came, she finally said. I came. I didn't think you would. Neither did I. Another silence. The vending machine hummed. Somewhere down the hall, a door slammed. How's Lily? Nicole asked, her voice careful. Walking. Talking. She says, Mama, and no, and cookie. That's her entire vocabulary. I paused. She's happy. Nicole smiled, a small, sad thing. Good. That's good. I studied her face. searching for the woman who had given my daughter baths and sung her lullabies. The woman who had poured drugged wine and discussed murder timelines. Both versions existed. Both were real. I read your letter, I said. 100 times. Probably. I meant every word. I know. I took a breath. That's why I'm here. Because I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth. Nicole nodded slowly. Anything. When you heard Lily crying that night when you decided not to go through with it, was it really about Emma? Or was it about you? The question hung between us. Sharp and dangerous. Nicole closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were wet. Both, she whispered. I wanted to believe it was all about Emma, that I was honoring her memory, protecting a baby the way I couldn't protect her. But the truth is, she swallowed hard. The truth is I was tired. Tired of pretending. Tired of hating. Tired of being the person David turned me into. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Emma wouldn't have wanted this. Any of this. She would have told me to go to therapy. Move on. Build a life. She would have said revenge is poison. Nicole laughed bitterly. She was always the wise one. I was just the angry one. I thought about my own anger. The rage that had kept me awake for months. The fantasies of watching David suffer. Dr. Okonkwo had helped me see it for what it was, a shield against the grief underneath. I'm not going to forgive you, I said quietly. I don't think I can. What you did, what you were willing to do, it's too big. Nicole nodded, accepting it, but I'm not going to hate you either. I met her eyes. You saved my daughter's life. You saved mine. That doesn't erase the rest, but it means something. I don't know what yet. Maybe I never will. Nicole's tears fell freely now. She didn't try to hide them. Thank you, she said, for coming, for telling me that. Don't thank me yet. I pulled something from my purse, a photograph. Lily at her first birthday, frosting in her hair, laughing at the camera. I brought you this, I thought. I thought you should see her. Nicole took the photo with trembling hands. She stared at it for a long time, her thumb tracing Lily's face. She looks like you, she said. Everyone says that. They're right. Nicole looked up. She's going to be okay, Sarah, because she has you. I stood. The visit was over. Take care of yourself, Nicole. You too. I walked toward the door, then stopped. Emma would be proud of you, I said without turning around. For telling the truth, for facing what you did. She would be proud. I didn't wait for a response. I walked through the security checkpoint, collected my belongings, and stepped into the Texas sun. The drive home took 3 hours. I didn't turn on the radio. I didn't call Rachel. I just drove, letting the silence fill the spaces where the anger used to live. I found Emma's grave on a gray November morning. Gloria had given me the address months ago, scribbled on a napkin after the sentencing. I'd kept it in my wallet, waiting for the right moment, the right words, the right version of myself. I wasn't sure any of those things existed. But Lily was with Rachel for the day, and the sky was heavy with clouds that refused to rain, and something in my chest said times today. Asterisk. The cemetery was small, a quiet patch of green on the outskirts of San Antonio, where Gloria had grown up. Oak trees lined the pathways, their leaves turning gold and rust. A few other visitors wandered between headstones, carrying flowers, carrying grief. Emma's plot was near the back, beneath an old magnolia tree. The headstone was simple white marble, elegant in its restraint. Asterisk. Asterisk. Emma. Grace. Reed. Asterisk. Asterisk. 1997到2022. Asterisk asterisk. Beloved daughter. Sister. Friend. Asterisk asterisk. Asterisk. She carried sunshine wherever she went. Asterisk. I stood there for a long time, reading those words over and over. 25 years old. She'd been 25 when David killed her. Younger than I was now. A whole life ahead of her: nursing school, motherhood, all the ordinary miracles she'd never experience. I knelt on the damp grass and pulled a folded paper from my pocket. "I wrote you a letter," I said aloud, feeling foolish and necessary all at once. "I know you can't read it. I know you're not here, not really, but I needed to say these things somewhere. And this felt like the right place." I unfolded the paper and began to read. Asterisk. "Dear Emma, asterisk, asterisk, we never met, but I feel like I know you. Asterisk, asterisk, I know you wanted to be a nurse because you liked taking care of people. I know you raised Nicole when your parents couldn't, telling her bedtime stories about faraway places. I know you fell in love with the wrong man. And when you got pregnant, you chose to keep the baby. You were going to name her Lily. Asterisk, asterisk. My daughter's name is Lily. Asterisk, asterisk. I didn't know that when I chose it. David suggested it, and I thought it was beautiful, simple, and pure, like the flower. I had no idea he'd stolen it from you, from the future he took away. Asterisk, asterisk. I'm so sorry, Emma. I'm sorry I didn't know. I'm sorry I married him. I'm sorry I couldn't save you. Even though we'd never met. Even though I didn't know you existed until it was far too late. Asterisk, asterisk. But I can do something now. I can make sure Lily knows your name. I can tell her about the woman who wanted to be her mother, who dreamed of her before she was born. I can raise her to be kind and brave and full of light the way Nicole says you were. Asterisk, asterisk. She won't just be David's daughter. She'll be yours too, in a way. The daughter you should have had. The life you should have lived. Asterisk, asterisk. I visited Nicole last month. I didn't forgive her. I'm not sure I ever will, but I understand her now. She loved you so much that it broke something inside her. Grief does that sometimes. It turns love into weapons. Asterisk, asterisk. I'm trying not to let that happen to me. Asterisk, asterisk. Dr. Okonkwo says healing isn't a straight line. It's more like a spiral. You keep passing the same points, but each time you're a little higher, a little further from where you started. I believe that. I have to. Asterisk, asterisk. Some days I wake up angry. Angry at David for what he did to you, to me, to Lily. Angry at the world for letting it happen. Angry at myself for not seeing the truth sooner. Asterisk, asterisk. But other days, I wake up grateful. Grateful for Lily's laugh. Grateful for Rachel's friendship. Grateful for the nanny cam that saved my life and for your sister, who couldn't finish what she started. Asterisk, asterisk. I'm learning to hold both things at once. The anger and the gratitude. The grief and the hope. The past and the future. Asterisk, asterisk. I think you would understand that. Asterisk, asterisk. I don't know if there's an afterlife, Emma. I don't know if you can hear me or see Lily or know how much your story has changed mine. But if you can, asterisk, asterisk, thank you. For the name, for the warning, even if it came too late. For the sister who saved my life because she couldn't save yours. Asterisk, asterisk. I'll take care of Lily. I promise. I'll tell her about you. I'll make sure she knows that her name is a gift, not a theft. That she carries a legacy of love, even from people she'll never meet. Asterisk, asterisk. Rest now, Emma. You've earned it. Asterisk, asterisk. With love. Asterisk. Sarah. I folded the letter and tucked it beneath a small stone at the base of the headstone. The wind picked up, rustling the magnolia leaves. For a moment, just a moment, I could have sworn I smelled lavender. The same scent Nicole had worn. The same blanket she'd knitted for Lily. I smiled through my tears. Goodbye, Emma. I stood, brushed the grass from my knees, and walked back toward my car. The clouds were beginning to break. A single ray of sunlight pierced through, illuminating the path ahead. I didn't look back. Lily turned 2 on a Sunday in May. The apartment was chaos streamers tangled in the ceiling fan, a butterfly-shaped cake listing slightly to the left, and 17 toddlers screaming at frequencies I didn't know existed. Rachel had warned me about inviting the entire Mommy and Me group. I should have listened, but watching Lily toddle between her friends, her face smeared with purple frosting, her laugh rising above the noise, I wouldn't have changed a thing. Mama, Mama, look. She held up a stuffed elephant, a gift from one of the neighbors. Her eyes were bright with wonder, as if she'd discovered something miraculous. I see it, baby. It's beautiful. She hugged it to her chest and ran off to show Rachel. Nearly tripping over her own feet, I leaned against the kitchen counter and let myself breathe. 1 year. It had been 1 year since the verdict, 13 months since the attack, 18 months since I'd installed a nanny cam and watched my world collapse. Some days it felt like yesterday. Other days it felt like another lifetime, a story that had happened to someone else. Dr. Okonkwo called it integration. The trauma becomes part of your story, she'd explained. But it stops being the whole story. You get to decide what comes next. What came next was this. A 2-bedroom apartment with too many toys and not enough storage. A job at a nonprofit that helped domestic violence survivors navigate the legal system. A daughter who said I love you in a voice that erased everything else. A life. Imperfect and beautiful and entirely my own. After the party, after the guests left and the cake was boxed and Lily was asleep in her crib, I sat on the balcony with a glass of wine. I actually drank this time. The Austin skyline glittered in the distance. Somewhere out there, David was marking another day in his cell. Somewhere else, Nicole was doing the same. Karen had moved to Florida last month. Rachel had heard through a mutual friend. She'd sold the house, donated Richard's belongings, and disappeared into retirement. I didn't know if she'd found peace. I wasn't sure I cared. My phone buzzed. A text from Detective Santos. Asterisk. Happy birthday to Lily. Hope you're doing well. Maya, asterisk. I smiled and typed back. Asterisk we are. Thank you for everything. Asterisk. Everything. Such a small word for what she'd done. For what they'd all done. Rachel, Santos, Gloria, even Nicole in her broken way. They'd helped me survive. They'd helped me become someone new. I pulled up my photos and scrolled through the day's pictures. Lily with frosting on her nose. Lily hugging the elephant. Lily blowing out candles while I held my breath. Terrified and proud and overwhelmed with love. Then I scrolled further back. To a photo I'd saved months ago. Emma's headstone, gray against green grass. The magnolia tree standing watch. The letter I'd left, invisible beneath its stone. I'd gone back twice since that first visit. Once in January, to leave flowers on the anniversary of her death. Once in March, just because. Gloria had met me there the second time, a quiet hour of shared silence and shared grief. She'd shown me pictures of Emma as a child. Taught me about her favorite songs, her terrible cooking, her habit of adopting stray animals. She would have loved Lily, Gloria had said. I know, I'd replied. I think she already does. I put down my phone and looked up at the stars. 18 months ago, I'd been Lily Mitchell, a mother, a wife, a woman who believed in her husband and her future and the safety of her own home. Now I was Sarah Mitchell, a survivor, an advocate. Both versions were real. Both had shaped me, but only one got to decide what came next. I thought about the nanny cam, still boxed in my closet. I'd kept it not as a reminder of what David had done, but as proof of what I'd survived. Someday, I would show it to Lily. Someday I would tell her the whole story, but not yet. For now, she was 2 years old, and obsessed with elephants, and blissfully unaware of the darkness that had almost swallowed us both. That was enough. That was everything. I finished my wine, checked on Lily one last time, and went to bed. Tomorrow I would wake up, make breakfast, go to work, pick up my daughter from daycare. I would answer emails and attend meetings and probably cry at least once. Because that's what healing looked like, not a destination, but a direction. The past would always be there. Emma's grave, Nicole's letters, David's cell, but the future was mine. I closed my eyes and let sleep come. Dreaming of nothing, dreaming of everything, dreaming of beginnings. Asterisk. 1 year later, Sarah Mitchell published a memoir titled Asterisk, 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 The Nanny Cam. Asterisk, Asterisk, Asterisk. All proceeds went to the Emma Reed Foundation, a non-profit supporting domestic violence survivors and their children. Asterisk. Asterisk. Nicole Reed was released on parole after 5 years. She now works as a counselor at a women's shelter in Houston. She and Sarah exchange letters twice a year. Asterisk. Asterisk. Karen Mitchell never contacted Sarah again. She died peacefully in 2031, leaving her estate to a childhood literacy program. Asterisk. Asterisk. Lily Mitchell grew up knowing 3 things. Her name was a gift, her mother was brave, and love, real love, never requires silence. Asterisk. Asterisk. She became a nurse. Asterisk.